The old man turned to scratch his chin. He said, son, I wouldn't know where to begin. But your daddy's gone down south. Was all he would talk about. We never blamed it on the soil. Well, the sun burned earth, though the prices of the oil. This border town is my home.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We've assembled quite a panel of friends and podcasters, etc. And we just thought, you know what? There's a lot going on in the world. And, you know, Lewis just got finished with his run for governor. As far as we're going to find out what's actually going on. We got Patriot Underground, who's back after a few weeks of probably some reflection. We got Mark from Fake News 7 New York, who's, you know, been part of news treason, but now he can define it as maybe semi-retired, but we're going to have him back on the show here and there. And we've got the amazing Ellen from Truth Teller Tales to keep us grounded in that divine femininity. So, and then we got me and Scott. So anyway, welcome to the show, everybody.
So good to be here.
Awesome. Well, I want to start, you know, Lewis, give us an update on everything that's went on and what's going on next. And I saw in one of the results that you had 1,696 votes. I was hoping for 4 more. What is the latest in the Lewis Herms camp?
Yeah,
Please.
It is crazy. So myself, and I'm going to give props to another candidate named Daniel Mercury. Actually, we were the most constitutional republic type candidates by far. We were polled independently, and we were the top 2 independents. We also had, when they actually took the names off of everything and polled, we by far had the policies that the people felt were best. We polled in the top 2, and the next one next to us, and Hilton was like half of where we were. So and he's campaigned like crazy, and I campaigned like crazy. So we knew we would be way up there. And then when the results came out, we're like, what is going? It's almost to me, and I know this. I hope this doesn't sound arrogant. It's almost like the white hats are saying, "Okay, we're going to slap these guys down as hard as possible, so to make an example of what's really going on, right?" And there's people that were just crushed in our debates that were polling at 5 to 10 times higher than we were, right? And there's people that they're saying, well, why are you even running to these people, right? So something crazy is going on. It's so low that it actually makes me kind of happy, because it's laughable, right? Because I think we calculated between everything, we had somewhere between 10 and 15 million views in the last year over just the campaign, and 30 million total with where I was on other interviews and so on and so forth. So, now it's up to like 2,100 votes. To get 2,100 votes is just like, all right, whatever. So, but that's okay. You know what I mean? I think what they're trying to do is a couple things. I think they want to embarrass the candidates that they're most afraid of. Because it works 2 ways. Hopefully we walk away and never do this again, right? That's kind of their goal. And the other goal would be that if we ever did do something, then people would keep referring back to our poor performance, right? And even Steve Hilton told me on the phone, he goes, "You're the one candidate I'm most concerned about." He goes, "But I have the media and I have President Trump's." So we know something's going on. We know something's going on with the voting, right? So, but that being said, there's also something bigger going on, which is, I think, very, very important. And I can't give all the details, but I can say Monday we're going into action. Let's just call it some form of a task force to hold accountable and deeply expose what's going on. And the beneficiaries of that may be Hilton and Spencer Pratt. So that's something that I'm working on in the background, and it's a big deal because this is the time for exposure. And as a candidate, you have a unique insight to request things that a citizen could not normally request. Let's just put it that way, ahead of time, well before a FOIA. So this is where I can only say that much, but it's going to be, I don't do anything half-assed. So it'll be, if everything works out, I'll have all the details by Sunday, and then we'll start taking action on Monday.
Wow. I think that's what we love about you, Lewis. Like, even when the going gets tough, you're like, even going into this, it was like you were planning whatever happens, you're going to navigate this one way or another to use it in a very positive light. And that's what I find so incredible about your way of handling things.
Well, the key is I never look at anything as a problem. I look at it as a challenge. And if there's a challenge, there's always a solution. So we just have to find our way around it. I was very young when they nicknamed me Loophole Louie, and I guess there's a it was actually a guy from New Jersey that I think worked for the mob that named me that. So I'm not quite sure that was a good moniker, but it stuck. So yeah, so I think it's going to be great. And we have on the horizon, we're doing incredible stuff with our platform. Which I'm sure we'll have time to talk about what we're doing with Freedom in Action and Screw Big Gov and something brand new. I think that's going to blow the socks off of people. So this is our opportunity to take our country back. We can't be waiting on some savior to come do this. I've been saying this for, 3, 4, 5 years, that we the people are the plan. That's my shirt. We the people are the plan. And it doesn't, people want to go into the hopium. Guess what that does? That freezes you. People want to go into the fear porn. What does that do? That freezes you. We've been the plan. We always are the plan. And it says trust the plan 47 times in the drops, but it says the people 142 times. We've always been the plan. We just have to pick the ball up and run with it right now. And I think the winds that are back. So this is for me. This is exciting times because I'm getting phone calls and text and chats daily. How can I help? What could we do? And that's where we needed to be years ago. But we finally seem to be here today.
Well, Lewis, you know what? And you've heard me go over this with you a bunch of times, but I got very, very, very disappointed in what happened this past week. And I guess part of it, and I just want everybody to know, I'm not questioning the plan. I'm not questioning the president. But when you look at the fact that the MSM has done zero coverage of the independent candidates, they are obligated under FCC law to give equal time to all candidates. So if the people of California should be doing anything, it's having a massive writing campaign into the FCC and to the stations, complaining about the fact that they're not giving equal time to the independent candidates. They're denying them of information. They're denying them of the opportunity to know these candidates. So they're missing out on a lot. And the president going and throwing his weight behind Hilton, to me, is an absolute embarrassment. I know that he's got half of his cabinet picked from the Fox talent pool. However, to take a guy to run for governor of a state that's probably more in trouble than any other state in the country, who is nothing more than a media hack. The only reason he's got any popularity is because of the fact that he's got a British accent and he was on Fox all these years. And he gets plenty of the notoriety from the other stations because of the fact that he was on Fox. They take care of their own. But above and beyond that, and I've railed about this for a long time already, where no journalist has ever questioned the narrative of 9/11. Where was Hilton's questioning of the narrative of 9/11? Does that indicate what kind of a governor, what kind of a politician he's going to be? That he withholds the truth for the sake of what the narrative happens to be? That's not what the state needs. That's not what the American people need. And I don't know the other candidates, but I do know you. I know what you bring to the table. And the people are being denied this information. And I think that, again, just like you said, and we've all said numerous times, the people need to step up. That's what this is all about. When the president said in 2017, he's returning the power and he's returning the country to the people, that doesn't mean that you sit back and go, oh, great, I've got the power. La, la, la. Okay, what are you doing for me now? No, get off your ass and do. And if it doesn't involve any money, if it involves something as simple as writing a damn letter, do it.
So, Mark, one of the biggest challenges I've seen over the last years is when people wanted to step up and do something, they didn't have a playbook to do so. So to give you a hint on what I'm doing moving forward is we're creating an online playbook so people know exactly what to do within their cities, their school boards, their counties, and their states. And it's going to be extraordinarily comprehensive. It's going to be part of my Freedom in Action website. And then in addition to that, we will finally have the app. It looks like we're going to get some funding for that to put the app out. That's Freedom in Action that will connect everybody from a patriotic social standpoint so they don't feel like they're on an island. And now we can organize and do what we need to do. So we all know Fox News is controlled opposition, right? So you've got Sean Hannity screaming at the top of his lungs, don't protest. That's not conservative. Right? You don't want to do that. Don't raise your voice. That's not conservative. Don't do that. Don't boycott. Well, those are all controlled opposition messages because what it does is it suppresses the conservatives from they dumb us down, just like the misinterpretation of Matthew 5:5, the meek shall inherit the earth with inside the corporate churches. The whole purpose is to dumb us down. That's not what meek ever meant. Meek never meant not docile and do nothing. Meek is a powerful, powerful a war horse called Prows from the Greek translation that protected the other horses, but people don't know this. So the conservatives have been the most attacked out of every, and I'm not saying Republicans specifically because the Republicans are dirty as hell and so are the Democrats, right? But the conservatives have been suppressed as much as they can because that is the righteous message from a constitutional republic. So therefore, we've been under attack very, very, very much. But hopefully we have the tools and now we have the will to do something about it coming forward.
Yeah, I do think that's the difference too, is Lewis, you said that they were hoping to, embarrass people like you, you would go away. Did they not realize we're living in a time where you're not going away?
Nope.
You're not. It's not going to stop you. It's not going to stop any of us at this point. None of us are going away. We're only it only emboldens us more to have more momentum and to do more, for sure.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Well, I guess I'll jump in here. It's really, it's great to be back. It's been a long time. And Joe reached out to me and he said that Mark and he were going to be doing a show. I was like, well, I can't miss out on that opportunity because Mark knows that I always jump at any possibility to sit down and have a conversation with him. And likewise with Joe. And then I found out that Lewis was going to be coming on board, somebody that I just have tremendous respect for. And I have to say, Ellen as well, and Scott, not last but not least. I mean, you guys are some of my favorite people in the movement, so it's great to be here and to be a part of this discussion today. And I think it's going to be a really good one. It already has been. In listening to Lewis break down his the situation that's playing out in terms of the election, it occurred to me that this is really just it's. I mean, not that it's by any stretch a small matter because. I can't remember who said it. I think it was Mark, that California is probably in the worst shape of any state out there, but it's still, in a sense, a microcosm of the bigger picture of where we're at right now, just in terms of holding people accountable. And, folks know in my audience that I've certainly taken some time to do a little bit of reflecting. And I have to say that I've moved farther and farther in the direction of, like Mark said, not abandoning trust in the plan and not trying to throw shade on the White Hats or on Trump, but rather to look at the optics and the circumstances that we're in right now and perhaps interpret them in a different way in terms of what we, the awakened, the Anon community, do moving forward. And I've largely come to the conclusion that they're pushing us harder and harder and harder every single day. Even though Trump puts out stuff saying, no panic-ins, and there's still that, don't black pill, trust the plan. I mean, that's still running rampant inside of our community, and I understand that has its place. But to me, it's like trusting the plan. And Lewis touched upon this a moment ago. Trusting the plan is that's very much open to interpretation. What does that really mean? Does it mean that we sit back and we more or less remain pacified by the things that we've been doing now for several years, all of which have been important, by the way? And I don't want to in any way send mixed messages here. I think that what all Anons do throughout the entire Patriot community is absolutely vital to this movement. So I'm not trying to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't be doing. And some of my recent commentary has been taken that way, unfortunately. But I believe that they're pushing us in this direction. I mean, none of us imagine, if you rewind the clock a little bit here, to earlier in the year when the Epstein files big drop came out and we were sifting through all that. It was like, oh my God, look at all the stuff that they're putting out there. And then, the next thing you know, we're supposedly at war with Iran, and we see Trump taking, just going after some of his strongest supporters. And it's like, it seems as if there's been a sharp pivot. And you have to ask yourself, I mean, why are they doing this? I mean, you could take the black pill approach and say, you see, this is all just a big betrayal, and there really is no plan or anything else. I don't believe that. I think that this is all part of this larger design to force us to the next level in terms of how we view our role in this military-civilian alliance. I think that, in the case of the election, that the white hats, like Lewis was saying, perhaps set this up on purpose so that, knowing who Lewis is and the type of man that he is, to drive that next level of action. Like, you're not going to just sit back and accept this. You're going to move forward. You're going to hold people accountable. You're going to push the needle as far as exposure. But all of this stuff has to be driven by us. And I used to be very much on the other side of the spectrum of just saying, that this is all pre-planned, and the white hats know exactly how this is going to play out. They know exactly what the timeline is going to be. That's how I used to interpret all of the comms and everything else. And now I've reached a point where I'm looking at it in a very different way, that Trump and the white hats and everyone surrounding him and his administration and the actions that they're taking, whether you believe that they're real or whether you believe that they're not, it's almost secondary to the larger question of what do we do in response to that? Do we sit back and just remain pacified and docile, waiting upon a savior? Or do we take action? Do we find the will to force this change that we're all waiting for, to be a part of that change? And when I say force, I don't mean by violence. I don't mean taking to the streets or doing anything along those lines, but I believe that it's time for all of us to do some reflection and to just maybe not so much on this panel, because I think we're largely on the same page, but just across the awakened community, because, and I'd love to be wrong about this, but the way I see it, if we continue to allow ourselves to just be pacified with comms and with memes, and then meanwhile, you've got all of these existential threats that are happening all around us. And we could talk about some of those today. I don't want to go on for too long here, but the data centers, the setting up of the apparatus for the surveillance state, that's a massive threat to humanity. I mean, and I don't believe that we can afford to just sit back and assume that all of this is just fake. It's all just a big psyop. Because the consequences of being wrong, I think we can all agree, are far too dire. So it's my view that the white hats are kind of forcing us into this position, and it was very jarring for me to find myself in this new mindset. It's taken me some time to process, and it's taken a lot of my audience by surprise, and certainly I've lost some followers over it, and that's okay, because I've never really been here ultimately for followers, for likes, for clicks, for anything along those lines. I started doing this because I have a deep love for my country. And people say, you have to choose a lane, pick a side, And I say, well, I've already done that. My side is with the American people. That's my side. And my lane, which I said right in the very beginning, is wherever the truth leads, because that's my ultimate allegiance. My ultimate allegiance is not to Q, and it's not even to President Trump. I remember the last time, even though I love the man, the last time we spoke, Scott said it best. He said, I don't need President Trump to be the hero. I don't need President Trump to be the good guy. If he ends up falling on his sword at the end of the day, in order to save this nation, or to prompt us to step forward and to save ourselves, then so be it. But that's really what this is all about. So I'll leave it at that and pass it over to whoever's next.
I just want to say I'm 100% with you. I know exactly what you're saying. I totally agree with.
I'm with you, man. I mean, you were way out ahead of me and just about everybody else in terms of saying consistently all along that we the people are the plan. And now more and more, I'm starting to see the truth behind all of that. If it was supposed to go, if we were supposed to just sit back and satisfy ourselves and looking at the comms and making the connections and like Lewis would say, inhaling the hopium, then I think it's pretty obvious that at this point we would have seen some very, very drastic things, positive things happen by now. And instead, what we're seeing is just the opposite. I mean, every single day you go and it looks worse and worse and worse. That's not to suggest that everything that Trump is doing is bad. Okay. But there are a lot of very, very big questions surrounding what this administration is doing. And, so I think for a long time, I just expected that eventually we were going to have this massive shift and everything was going to become clear. We would be just sitting back and enjoying all of the normies lose their minds. And instead, what we're seeing is like this division inside of our own community that's largely based upon the cult of personality surrounding Trump and those who are stepping outside of that and saying, look, this isn't really about President Trump. And even inside of the Q community, this isn't just about trusting the plan. Trust the plan means like believing that there is a plan, but it doesn't mean sitting back and just waiting, like you were saying, Lewis, waiting on a savior, because we have to save ourselves. This is a constitutional republic. If we're going to rebuild this nation and we're going to be the ones, if we're going to get all of these corrupt people out of power and we're going to assume that responsibility and take the reins, well, that involves more than what I would say a vast majority of people out there are doing right now. And it's not to criticize anyone, but it's rather to tip my hat to Lewis and to others like him who have been saying this all along, that it's not just simply about being pacified and being docile in this process. And in many ways, it gets to be more and more counterproductive, because the more you go through these psychological operations, and I've talked with Mark about this privately, the more you are conditioned to just wait for the next psyop, to wait for the next clue. And it's like they just kind of keep dangling the carrot out there. But after a while, it forces, like you were saying, it forces you kind of into like this paralysis where you're just kind of like sitting there waiting for them to do something, or for them to give you the next clue, or them to give you the next directive, as opposed to we the people getting together and saying this is bullshit, and we need to actually start demanding that we have accountability and exposure on a much larger scale. So.
Well, I think that we've been drawn into this mentality, and it's been cultivated quite intentionally for a long time, where we're rooting for a team. Our allegiance is for the team, whatever, it's our side versus their side, which reminds me of divided we will fall. And then there's a lack of engagement. You look at the man on the street interviews that Mark Dice does, or some of these other folks do, and people don't even know how our government works at the most simple level. So I think, that's two big issues that needed to be addressed. We need to draw people in to having an interest in how the system works and how to change it. Everyone's disappointed in it. These outcomes are terrible. California is a beautiful example of just how terrible. And, MAGA really started to resemble just rooting for a team. Yeah, and we get into the cult of celebrity, and we get into these mindsets, and we're right back to Maslow's hierarchy, a few stages down, where humans just want to belong to something. So they pick a team and they root for it. but that's not real conviction. It's not based on real principles. It's not something people will live and die for. It's something else, and we need to get back to a mentality that's it's far deeper than that. And I think a lot of this is setting us up to do that. I mean, if I entered this arena, oh, I don't know, around the time that Pam Bondi was doing her 180 on the Epstein files, I certainly wouldn't find myself on the MAGA side of things. And a lot of folks that have been writing, that team, well, they're sorrowfully disgusted with things. They don't know which end is up. But I think it's to shake us out of that mentality. And yeah, I don't think Trump has to be the good guy. He could be the complete villain in this, as long as the outcomes are good for the people. And we need to grow out of years and years and years of, well, quite frankly, mind control and manipulation, and find some kind of unity. And it isn't just the United States either. This is a global phenomenon in various intensities. So I think there's wisdom in that. I think it's in a lot of ways the most painful part of this process. The glyphosate thing, the top of my head blew off in rage. I didn't really vocalize it too much because we've seen a lot of these tactics work out just fine. So I'm hoping that's the case in this situation. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we're getting deprogrammed so that we can be more meaningful as we the people?
Well, I would say that's the intent, or I would hope that's the intent. What I definitely, and I know I've harped on this for years, y'all. I said, if President Trump comes riding in on a white Pegasus and saves the day, right, and we do nothing, we lose everything in a couple of years. If we are actively involved in taking back our republic, right, we can have it back forever, or at least hundreds and hundreds of years. This is why it's so important for us to be involved. And the founding fathers knew this way ahead of time. Ben Franklin said, it's a republic if we can keep it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to keep it if it's handed to us. That is the construct that we've been conditioned to anyways, where everything just gets handed to somebody. And if it gets handed to you, you have no respect for it. You have no personal autonomy over it. If we fight for this, which I believe we're about ready to do, which that's why the pain has to come before the pleasure. That's just the way life works. You have to be uncomfortable before you become comfortable. This is the phase that we're in. But I think we're here now. And I see people stepping up. And I know I was lucky enough or blessed enough to be ahead of the curve 5 years ago, but that's not important. What's important is that we're all on the same page now. We're all working together. We're willing to go into our city council meetings and our school board meetings, and we're willing to do what it takes to expose this. And I've said for years, and I now people don't get mad at me, but years ago they did. And I said, stop idolizing President Trump. I said, if President Trump is who I think he is, he doesn't want you to idolize him. This is an exercise in our sovereignty, but you have to claim your sovereignty personally first before we can take it back altogether.
Well, this is something I've said to people for a long time already, and I keep yelling at them about it. Well, Trump. First of all, this is a military operation. This is not a Trump plan. This is a military operation. And the analogy I always use is like the Rolling Stones. The military is the Rolling Stones and Trump is Jagger. He's the front man. He's the poker face who can go out there, who's dealt
Trump
in.
is better looking though.
Jagger could shave his butt and turn around and look better than he normally does, but especially now at 80 something. But Trump's a businessman, and he goes and he knows how to deal with these types of situations. But getting back to what Patriot was talking about before, and it's an important point, we are allegedly, my favorite word in the English language, we are allegedly in the Great Awakening. And people need to wake up and really look at things unemotionally and pragmatically. And they have to see, if you look at things closely enough and you listen to what's being said and what we're being told, a lot of what's being said echoes almost directly what we've come to know as Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, the plan for the New World Order, et cetera, et cetera. It reflects on it absolutely directly. And I think the purpose of that is to take the people who are awake and let them see, if you don't do something, if you don't start to take action towards something, this is going to happen. And then also by turn, because there's enough of it that's out there that irritates the normies. Say, you know, we can't have it like this. You can't have one world government. You can't have everybody. We can't be willy-nilly going into countries and taking them over and all of this stuff. We can't be allowing the powers that be to continue to manipulate the markets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can't keep us all in poverty, because there are a whole bunch of inconsistencies out there. You know, we've heard from 2016, drill, baby, drill. Look at what's been going on with oil prices since the alleged conflict in Iran. Okay, if we've got more oil than anybody else in the world, we shouldn't have that problem with oil here. You've got all kinds of different things that are and oil affects everything that we deal with on a daily basis. It affects your grocery prices. It affects your heating and cooling of your home, going to and from work. Every little thing oil has a part of. So all of these different things and the control that's being exerted show the people this is what will be your life if you don't take action and do something about it. And what we were discussing before the show was the simple fact that when you look in general at things, and the line that's been out there that, you know, when all this comes to fruition, we'll only ever find out about 20% of what actually happened, because that's all the people could possibly handle. But if the people came to the realization, as most of us awake know, that for at least 12 years already, it's the alleged good guys who have been doing this to us, you have to think how the normies would react to that. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot out there that people need to awaken to, mm-hmm, and come to the realization and do the things that are necessary. And I've said from the get-go, the key to this whole thing, if it's going to have legs and it's going to have longevity, is you have to change human nature.
Yep. Yep.
You know, during the pandemic, that was such a stark difference between who was going to follow the rules, mm-hmm, and who was not going to follow the rules. And right then, that was a big eye opener for a lot of us, that we would look around and be like, how could you not see that what is happening here, where we're standing 6 feet apart and double masked, right? And then that led us to just get so much information and dive into the information and just absorb it all, you know. And now we're coming into a time where the good news is that I've found is that there are people building infrastructures parallel to what is the normal folks are using. I've interviewed with people doing holistic centers, and new education centers and areas that are holistic for elderly. And so there are people doing things, and where there are people like Lewis who's coming up with infrastructures to help find their voice in other ways. So I definitely, to everybody's point, feel like this is moving and it's just getting stronger and stronger. And we have to be, I guess, pissed off enough as well, too, to keep us going and motivated to push forward with these new ways of looking at things.
Well, on that point, I could also jump in as well, because what Mark just said really reflects what I've been talking about for a long time, although my perspective on how we move forward has changed, as I just articulated. What I call the parallel construction strategy. That first of all, you're 100% right. This is a military operation. Trump was invited to run. He was invited to be the front man. And even though there's been sort of this cult of personality over the years that's taken root for President Trump, people tend to forget that. Like, that this is much bigger. This is much bigger than Trump. But putting that aside for the moment, what I believe is happening is that exactly what Mark just pointed out is that they're showing us, like they say, it says in the Q drops all over the place. You can't tell the people, you got to show them. So they're showing us what this dystopian world that's taking shape around us, whether you believe it's actually real or whether you believe it's optics, and I'll get to that in just a moment, is a separate question. But they're showing us, they're basically simulating the beginning of us being sleepwalked into our own destruction. And the question is, the phrase that the target audience that gets thrown around constantly, right? That we're not the target audience of the movie. This is all for the normies. And I have to tell you that upon reflecting on that at a deeper level, I really have to ask myself, because somebody mentioned MSM a little bit earlier, and that we're all just sitting kind of scratching our heads to this day, wondering how more people aren't awake. But the fact of the matter is that the normies aren't awakening in mass. And so if the normies are the target audience, I'm not saying that progress isn't being made, but I think it's probably a good idea to start questioning whether or not we, the awakened, the ones who are actually paying attention and having conversations about this, who actually care and have put skin in the game, are also the target audience. And what role do we play as we're being led into the precipice? Because Mark made a really good point there. They're showing us this is the dystopic world, or dystopian world, that you're going to live in if you don't actually take action and save yourselves. And then it kind of gets into the question, okay, well then, as Anons, if we believe that this is just simply all optics and none of it's actually real, is that the way that we should be interpreting this, and just sort of pointing out, oh, this is a psyop, and essentially convincing ourselves or pacifying ourselves that there's no real threat? Or is there actually a real threat if we don't take action? Now, I'm not here to solicit anybody's belief one way or another. But one thing I can tell you is that I believe that we are just as much as, perhaps even more so than the normies, the target audience of what's being rolled out right now. Because if we're being pushed to the precipice, what is the role of Anons under these conditions? Are we supposed to just sit back, or are we supposed to actually lead the way, take charge, show up in mass, peacefully protesting? I'm sure you guys have seen, it's been all over the news what's happening in Albania. And I put out a post on that, just saying, it's amazing to see how, and you can say whatever you want about Albania and the corruption there. I mean, I don't really know that much about the Albanian people. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do. But one thing I do know is that they're not allowing their country to get sold out. They're showing up in mass on the streets. Now, I'm not there. I don't know exactly what's going on, how much of it is real, and whether there's violence, etc. And I'm not advocating violence. I never do. We have our Second Amendment. It's an absolute last resort. But it's incredible that in this country, we've seen so much corruption already exposed, that to the degree that we're led to believe now that our country is basically occupied by a foreign government, by a foreign nation. And in Albania, there's like this one deal with Kushner, this $1 billion deal. And these people took to the streets by the hundreds of thousands and just said, the hell with this. We're not doing this. We're not selling our country out. And meanwhile, over here in America, we haven't really seen much of that at all. The one thing I can say is that, certainly people criticized me and said, well, the last time we came out, look what happened on January 6th and this and that. Well, you have to remember that was also very much a controlled operation. And a lot of that was set up to entrap people, to get people thrown in prison and so forth. But doesn't mean that just because there were the whole J6 scenario happened, that what are we supposed to do? Interpret that as like, we're never supposed to take the streets anymore. We're never supposed to show up in mass and protest things. We're not supposed, that's the thing, is like, there are so many more of us than there are of them. And if enough people, even it just, somebody put a comment in there a little while ago saying, and it's an old saying, all politics is local. And it reminds me of what General Flynn has been consistently saying, like local action equals national impact. And by the way, as General Flynn is leading the charge saying that we need to do more to demand accountability, who do you think he's talking to? The normies? They're not listening to General Flynn. We're the ones listening to General Flynn. So it could be that that's the message that they're trying to convey. But look, if we showed up in mass anywhere a decision was being made, whether it be at the school board, I mean, there's at the state level, local elections, wherever there's corruption, if enough people showed up in mass, they would be forced. They would be forced to back off.
Well,
To
look,
back
You're literally right in my wheelhouse. This is beautiful, and I preach this all the time. This is why I'm creating the Freedom in Action app for this exact purpose. It has an event calendar so we can show up. I've ran the numbers on this. It's 1 in 1,000 step up and we take our country back. 1 in 1,000. I'll give you an example of that. If there's 50,000 people in a city, there's a school in that city that's going to introduce porn to children in the library. If 50 people show up to that meeting, this is the key, with a consistent message, they win every time. So what I like to tell people is I say, if you have your phone, right, there's a crystal on it. If I set this, let's say this is 25 pounds and I set it on top of it, nothing happens. But if I take a pen and put it on there and then put the 25 pounds on top of the pen, that crystal's going to break every single time. And the reason why is because that's focused pressure in one spot, right? This is what we need to do. And we need to do this in our school board meetings, our city council meetings, our township, everywhere. Focus. What we tend to do is we go into these board meetings and you have 3 people doing some separate prayer. And I'm clearly not against prayer, but they'll do a prayer for 2 minutes each, and another person will talk about how the water is dirty, and another person. Now, all of these could be valid and valuable things, but the plan is very, very simple, and I've created this, and it works. You have a pre-meeting with everybody. You all get on the same page. You pick the best speakers, and you position them throughout this, and you say, guys, praying is great. Let's pray before. Let's not take our 2 minutes to pray. And let's be focused on what we want. We only want one thing out of this one. That's that they will not put porn in the library, period, in the story. If there's 15, 20 meetings in a year, you've accomplished 15 or 20 things, where if you're spread out, you accomplish nothing over the year. So that it's very simple. And this is why I say the micro will fix the macro. So we have the tools, and we're going to come out with, this is what our Freedom in Action platform is going to be all about, guys. Is exactly doing what Patriot's talking about, is nailing it, giving everybody the tools, the education to do this, and it's all free. Everybody knows that when I do this type of work. So these are very, very powerful things, and traveling the country 4 times over now, I could tell you this is what people need when you're talking to them. They want to get involved. They just don't feel like they have a clue what to do, right? But when we have that pinpoint pressure, we absolutely will win. We have example after example after example, because these demons that are sitting on the other side of that ship up on top of that wooden ship, I can tell you one thing, they do not like pinpoint pressure. They're just hoping that you're just going to, okay, say a prayer. Great. That takes up 2 minutes. Say this, that takes up 2 minutes. And then they move on. They vote for whatever they want. But when they're held account, they cave, because they're just puppets anyways.
Well, look what's happening with the data centers, right? That's a great example. A lot of them, these billion-dollar interests, these billionaire interests have already been shut down, because when the entire town descends upon the meeting with one unified message, as we the people, saying, you're not doing this in our backyard. Chances are, like Lewis said, I mean, these people are all puppets. They're bought and paid for, but they're cowards. They're doing it. The reason that we find ourselves so deep in this quagmire is because they've been so successful in dividing us and conquering us and distracting us away from exactly what Lewis is talking about, the means with which we can by which we can come together as one unified people, despite our differences, with one unified message, and saying, this is our country. But even at the local level, and I truly believe this, you don't start at the federal level. You start in your own town, in your own city, in your own state. And it has ripple effects. It inspires other people to come forward. That's really what it is. And look at how many people Lewis has inspired already to adopt a more aggressive, peaceful but aggressive attitude and an active attitude about like we have to show up. There's an old saying, 90% of life is showing up, and it's great that we've been educating ourselves and we've been learning so much along the way in this process of the Great Awakening. But it raises the question: what are we supposed to do with all of this knowledge that we have? Are we supposed to just sit here and have conversations? I mean, sure, this is great. I love getting on these panels and podcasting and having these great discussions. But the reason I do it primarily is to put out a message that hopefully is going to resonate with people, not just to make them comfortable, but perhaps to say, you know, there's a reason that you're being made to feel uncomfortable. And that really is what it all comes down to, is like, if enough people are willing to just show up, even if you don't know, because people say this all the time, it's the first criticism. Well, what am I supposed to do? I've tried to wake this person up. I've tried to wake that person up. I share information. Look, I'm not saying that that's bad, but what I'm saying is that as long as we are kept apart and we don't physically come together and take action together peacefully, like Lewis said, with one unified message, they're going to just continue driving this agenda forward. Like, they're dead serious about it. Whether you think it's optics, whether you think it's real, it's a separate question. The fact of the matter is that this is the perception of reality around us right now. They're showing us existential threats to humanity are actually taking root. And we have to ask ourselves, are we going to sit back and just simply allow this to happen? And even if you think it's all fake and it's all a psyop, does that mean that you're supposed to just sit back and enjoy the show and eat your popcorn and pass your stale soda? I don't think so.
Didn't we start out with a plan? I mean, I think it was called the Constitution. The founding fathers kind of had some information as well. And it wasn't just trust the plan, it demanded our participation. And one key point was to throw off tyrannical government. And what have we seen for the last, I don't know how many years? We've seen nothing but tyranny, largely in the form of fraud. You know, I mean, look at, we had Doge, we had the whole Somali revelations. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Wait till we hit healthcare and the derivatives market and some of these other things. This is something we've just sat back and in some varying levels of discuss, but there's been no real action.
But Scott,
And January 6th represented a certain amount of action, and we saw how they dealt with that. But I think that emphasized the presence of tyranny. So I think the unity piece is really important here. And I think, sometimes revolution doesn't have to be violent. It can just say, hey, we don't recognize you as authority. We're not going to participate in that system any longer. We had a plan. It's called, like the Second Amendment, the entire Constitution that we've deviated so much from. So I think maybe we're being steered in that direction.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, the point with that is we've been pushed that way our entire lives. This is what my business, under the control of the powers that be, has done for decades. It's a brainwashing. There's no greater motivator in life than fear. And we are the biggest fear mongers out there. We go out and we push fear. Look, that it's become a comical phrase already. If it bleeds, it leads. Okay. That's the news business. That's how they've taken control. And very honestly, and I've said this a million times, and we've discussed this a million times. Okay. We, as the quote unquote new media, and I'm not taking this panel into consideration, but a lot of what's out there has become just as bad as the MSM. And they go and they push the fear porn and they keep us under the thumb, and they've divided us and made us afraid of certain words and certain actions or reactions to the point where everybody was scared. But bitches, we're out of the closet now. Okay. We don't have to be afraid to come out and say what we feel, because there are more than enough of us out there. There are more than them out there. But people are still afraid of being called a racist, an anti-Semite, a homophobe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Every adjective that's been added to our vocabulary to keep us from stepping out of line.
Yep.
We
must.
So the key, Mark, and I love that you're saying this, is it's authenticity. And I can tell you two very interesting scenarios during this run for governor. One is a gentleman named Jesse Lee Peterson interviewed me, right? And he said something to the effect, he says, "Can white man use the word nigger?" And I think I shocked him. I said, absolutely. I said, the word disgusts me, and I would never use it. That's not something in my vocabulary, but it's freedom of speech. Absolutely, we should be able to do. And he's a black man, so he was challenging me, a white man, with that question. And
Right.
then just last weekend, I was in an interesting forum at University of California, Santa Barbara. And the first person that got up that spoke, she said, "I'm a professor, blah, blah, blah. My pronouns are he, her, or whatever the hell, or she, he. No, I'm sorry, she, her." See how confusing it is? So,
Yeah.
so, and that's intentional, by the way. So anyway, so we went through, and this was at it was hosted by a black fraternity. And it became all the candidates were just pandering and pandering and pandering and pandering to the black community, how they're disenfranchised and so on and so forth. And here's the redistricting really hurts them, and blah, 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 blah. And they kept talking about, we're in a democracy, we're in a democracy, we're in a democracy. So my wife is there, and she's here right now, and she was getting very nervous because she knows I'm not one to hold my tongue. And then after about 10 to 12 people, I got up there, and we had 4 minutes to speak. And I changed everything I was going to talk about. And I said, well, let's clarify something off the beginning. We are in a constitutional republic. We are not in a democracy. As long as you want and bleed to be in a democracy, you think you're under control. Wait until you're in a democracy when the mob rules. The last people that are going to be taken care of on the list are black people. I said, so you better be very careful what you're asking for. And then I said, my father, who was the only white business owner during the Watts riots in Watts, not to have his business, Acorn Gasket Company, burned down and vandaled because blacks stood outside to protect it. That's not because he pandered to blacks. That's because he treated them as equal and locked arms with them and had real conversations with them. I said, so I'm not quite sure why we're trying to reverse and go back to pandering, because that ultimately does nothing. And I went on and on and on and on. I'm not saying this because I'm pretty cool, although my wife thinks I am. One person on the planet thinks I am. The reason why I'm saying this is we have to be courageous and authentic in our message. And it's extraordinarily important. We cannot operate in fear. When we refrain from saying something because we're concerned about how we're going to look, we are operating in fear, whether we want to say that or not. We must be authentic, and authenticity rules the day. So I need to be authentic here. I keep hearing everybody say, and it's fine. I'm not talking about violence. I'm not talking about violence. We're not. Although it is the threat of violence, the prospect that we are willing to be violent to take back a republic, is why they must pay attention to us.
Damn right. Yep. Well said.
What
And
was-
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ellen.
I was just going to say, what was the response you got after you spoke there, Lewis?
Oh, shocking enough, a black professor came up to me and he says, "I just wanted to thank you." And I said,
Wow.
"Really?" I was shocked. I thought I literally was going to square up, right? He walked right up on me and he said, "I just wanted to thank you." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes." He says, "Thank you for reframing that we're a constitutional republic." He says that gets lost often. And you're right. The ramifications of something different would be bad. I'm going to start teaching my students that again. I really appreciate it. So that alone, if that's all I got out of it, that was a powerful moment, because he speaks
Wow.
to a lot of students.
Absolutely.
He would have come up to you about the other comment, because people, one of the things people fail to understand, and that's people in the media and people in alternative media, words can hurt. And a pejorative word hurts no matter if you're part of that group or not. My feeling on the quote unquote N word, and I've said this to blacks and whites alike, niggers come in all colors, because it's not just a bastardized Southern dialect of the word Negro, but it's an idealism, and they come in all colors. Those type of bad people come in all colors. So when it comes to that, even blacks using it, even though they changed it from nigger to nigga, doesn't take the toxicity out of it. And I've always used the phrase, I have never walked into a synagogue and said, yo, kike, what's happening? If it's a pejorative, it's a pejorative. You don't say it. And you certainly don't say it because you want to detoxify it or make it less painful. It doesn't work that way. And people have to be a little more consistent and considerate in the things that they're saying and thinking. And we need to police our own.
Well, I've always said, I may not like something that you say, but I will fight for your right to say it.
Yep.
And that is the most important thing, I believe, because that is really what our founding fathers were their set belief system was on, which is very, very powerful. And it's everybody says, what's the most important amendment? And I say the Second Amendment. They said, really? I thought it would be the first. Yeah, the second, because it protects the First Amendment and all the other amendments thereafter.
I'm glad you made that point, because I mean, it really is true that the reason that we have a First Amendment is because of the threat of the use of force. Like we're willing to go there. And I think that you don't have to show up with weapons to send that message. That's the thing. But you know, there's so many things that have been said that have been really, really important. What you were talking about, Lewis, in terms of us being a constitutional republic versus a democracy, reminds me of it was Thomas Massey who put out a tweet saying that if people vote with the president, then we have a monarchy. If people vote, based upon if we have democracy, then basically we have mob rule. But if we operate under the Constitution, then we have a republic. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it's so important that people understand what it is that we're trying to reclaim, because that's the other thing. I mean, we can't really have a clear idea of what it is to do, how we take action, unless we understand the framework of what it is that we're trying to reclaim in the first place. But the whole concept of, I mean, I've been sitting here listening to everybody and monitoring the comments as well. And, you see the same thing over and over and over of people saying, yeah, but the problem is blah, 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 right? The problem is that so many people are one check away, or, one paycheck away from bankruptcy and going broke and losing their homes. Other people will say, well, yeah, if you show up somewhere, they're just going to arrest you and so forth. There's always an excuse. There's always a reason not to take action. And that's why we are progressively allowing our rights to be taken from us, right? Because we haven't made the commitment. I mean, look, let's take the bankruptcy situation, or people being, going broke, the threat of losing their homes. If it continues along this way and nothing changes, you will lose your home. You will go bankrupt. So you're going to wait for that to happen before you take action, before you put skin in the game? No. And, if one or two people show up to protest something, or, go down to some local municipality, yeah, they might be able to arrest a few of you. But the whole point we were making earlier is that if 300 people show up, they're not arresting anybody. You're essentially going to take that place over, right? And that's the type of attitude. And I think that, and it's not to be dismissive of the concerns that people have, because I have the same ones. But if we are going to reclaim this republic, we have to move beyond that fear. And I believe that the whole reason that we were pre-awakened ahead of all the masses is so that we could be the focal points. We could be the ones to be the local leaders in our communities. You don't have to have name recognition. You don't have to be famous. You just have to have will, and you just have to have courage, and you have to be willing to stand behind principle. And the more that you do that, the more other people will follow you. I've heard people say all the time, oh, well, we need a leader in order to do this. How about you be a leader? Why don't you start and try doing a little bit of organizing on your own? May not happen overnight. And that's the other thing. We've devolved into a very
Instant gratification.
instant gratification type of mentality, where if we don't get the result on the first try, or we see a couple of obstacles in front of us, we just say, oh, there's no point. And that's why I believe that so many people have gravitated in the direction of just like, okay, just sit back, trust the plan, let the white hats do everything, because it's more comfortable to do that. Let's just be honest. It's a lot more comfortable. It takes a lot less effort. And I'm not suggesting that people go put themselves in stupid situations. I mean, you have to use common sense. You don't want to, run around and pop off and do something that's stupid that's going to get you thrown in jail. What I'm talking about is like using our rights while we still have them in order to organize and to take action at a local level and watch how that reverberates throughout the entire country and really throughout the entire world. Because anytime that happens, I mean, you see these viral videos on social media of that data center in New Jersey, that massive project that got shut down. And there have been several other ones where the people have come together by the hundreds, if not the thousands, in these local communities, and they've affected real change peacefully. Sure, if 3 or 4 people showed up, even if they had a unified message, it may not go anywhere. But if at first you don't succeed, you try again, and you just keep pushing and you keep pushing, and you don't lose sight of what the ultimate goal is, and you operate on those principles. If we're not willing to do that, I mean, that's the thing. You have to really ask yourself that question, folks. If you're not willing to do that, then do you really even deserve a constitutional republic? Do you even deserve the birthright that our founding fathers passed on to us, that previous generations sacrificed and fought and died for? I mean, today happens to be the anniversary of D-Day, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's incredible how people lose sight. And this is why, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, why it's so dangerous to get into this cult of personality type of a mentality, where the only thing you're focusing on are, deconstructing the psyops. That can go on literally for another. I mean, we could all be dead and gone, and they could still be running these psyops on us, get people to take action. I mean, is that what we really want? Of course not. We've been trained. I believe that this is a training ground. This is the military civilian alliance and all of these psychological operations pushing us to the precipice where we have no other choice. We can't sit back and we can't take anything on faith any longer because the threats are just too great. We have to take action now while we still have the opportunity to do so. Or like Mark said earlier, if not, then you get what you get.
Hey, Joe, would you allow me to tie a bow on this? And I'll be upfront. It's probably going to take 3 to 5 minutes, but I think I can tie all this stuff together with timelines that may blow people away. Plus, somebody is requesting to know about Orange County, which links directly into this.
Absolutely, and I just want to show people what you are doing next weekend. If you can just talk about this for 1 second and then go into that. So this is what Lewis is going to be part of. Please, Lewis, take it away and then go right into what you need to say.
So yeah, this is the Fraud Fighter Summit, which will be June 15th to 17th in Las Vegas. And as you can see, there'll be some very, very powerful people there. And I think there's going to be some surprise guests there also. But I honestly wish that the people on the lower level should be the ones on the top, because these are the fighters that have the information and exposing fraud at the highest possible level you can imagine. That's what you'll see. Mark Cook there and Sean Taylor there and several other amazing people that really have been hammering and showing this. But we're in essence, we're also coming together to come up with solutions on how we the people can take our country back. So I think this is a huge event. It's I believe I don't get anything out of this, but I believe the price is $350, which people would say, oh, that's expensive, but it's 3 days. It includes a film, but you know what it also includes? It includes 7 gourmet meals over the time, so nobody has to pay for their own meals too. So I think that the value is really there. But I'll be there. I'm gonna be off of the mainland, and then we're gonna fly into there, and then I have an event in Tennessee, and then Florida, then fly back home. But such is our life right now. But it's all good. But let me tie a bow on what we were talking about.
Thank you, Lewis.
because I think this is fascinating, and I'm going to rewind to 2018, and I want to show kind of maybe there's a connection between everything that's going on. In 2018 in Orange County, California, there was an election and the Board of Supervisors. So the 5 Board of Supervisors were elected that night. All 5 of them were Republican. Well, in the middle of the night, ballots came coming in and coming in and coming in, truckloads. And then by morning, all 5 Republicans lost those seats and 5 Democrats took those seats. Orange County is a very conservative county in California. Why is that important? Well, it's not that the baddies knew whether or were testing ballot harvesting, because they've been doing that for 40, 45 years all across the world. In other countries, we've been overthrowing governments with the same process. I've talked to ex-CIA agents about this, and they've literally described what happened in Orange County happens other places. But what happened is the next morning, all 5 of those Republicans that lost came out and they said, "We'll get them next time." So what happened at that moment is, I believe the test was, what was the resolve of the Republicans and the conservatives? And since there was zero resolve, I believe at that time, the baddies knew that they already won the 2020 election. Because they knew, we can do this, we can get away with it, and nothing's going to happen. So here's what was interesting, though, and this is where we the people, fast forward to the pandemic. I call the panic-demic. I know Ellen calls it the plandemic. I call it the panic-demic. Fast forward, Orange County, California was the first county to try to install a mandatory vaccine passport. Can you imagine that? In our wonderful constitutional republic, a mandatory vaccine passport. Well, Lee Dundas and some other great people got together, and they brought 2,500 people to that Board of Supervisors meeting. Now, remember, these Board of Supervisors are all bought and paid for. They could be pedophiles. Who knows what they're compromised, but they are definitely only answering to a higher level cabal. So those 2,500 came over there. I think about 1,400 signed up to speak. And when they got through about 700 people speaking, can you imagine how long that took? Finally, the supervisors, those dirty supervisors, got together. They pulled it off the table and they said, "We're not going to vote on it." So at that moment in time, these 5 highly corrupt supervisors said, "We are more afraid of we the people than going back to our controllers that have all the dirt on us, all the money on us, and that we're really scared of." We the people proved right there at that moment that we had everything. And then you go to J6. J6 was brought up, and I'm going to tie this together. Well, guys, I was at J6. I feel very proud that myself and the Viking probably saved a lot of lives on that day, which is an untold story that people have avoided completely. And I can tell you that the FBI has been at my house. They've been in my garage. They've been in my backyard. They've interrogated myself over this. Why is this important? J6 is a psyop. I think there's probably 2 million people there, and there are a few thousand that were arrested.
Mm-hmm.
What does everybody focus on? The few thousand that arrested. It's fear. It's constant fear. It's fear. It's fear. It's fear. Because now, after J6, I saw every time I said, "Hey, show up to the meeting and do this." "Oh, geez, I don't want to get arrested. You saw what happened at J6. I said, "Well, there's also J6 is a controlled captured operation. It's actually a little bit different. It's so different that when I was doing my truth tours, my people in the security team that were with me sometimes were like, "We're not driving through DC." That's how much it's a different entity than the rest of the United States, right? I can go into corporation, all that, but that'll get us off track. So why this is important is you had maybe 1 in 500 that are arrested, maybe. I think it was less than that. But yet that's the sole focus of the news media. Why is that? That constant fear and that brainwashing that if you stand up, you're going to be arrested. That was the intent.
That's right.
Of J6. And I think that gets lost in the morass of what we're doing. So I hope people understand that. Now, our solution coming forward is the Freedom in Action Plan, because it's going to be able to do exactly what people are requesting here. There's an event calendar. Boom. Does it come up on event? Everything's already geo-targeted. By the way, that software is already inside of it. It's working. Geo-targeting works. You're like, good. Is there anything going on within 50 miles of me? Yes, right here. Here it is. Take a look. How about my county? Click on your county. Here it is. That all is already working in this. The reason why this Freedom in Action is so, and I don't even know when it's going to be out, so I'm not pushing it. I'm letting you know that there is something that we can do. It's because now we can organize together individually without fear. And I can tell you, do you know how many people were arrested at the Orange County event out of 2,500? Zero.
I was gonna say,
Wow.
yeah. Yep. It's so well said. It really is. It comes down to, and I'm glad you laid that out about January 6th. I wasn't going to really launch into it. And certainly I think you know a lot more about it than I do, having been there, because I wasn't. But very clear to see that. I mean, look at the impact that it's had to this day. I mean, this is what happens when you bring this up and you say it's time for people to go out and protest, take to the streets. That's always the response that you're met with. And it really comes down to keeping us locked inside of fear. And again, that's what makes the whole passive approach to this whole thing, even for the most well-intentioned, best-informed patriots out there, it makes it so appealing to just believe that everything is just going to get taken care of for us, so that we don't have to actually risk anything. I mean, it's not to suggest that if you go out and take action, there's not some sort of a risk involved. But again, there's a much bigger risk in not taking action, like we talked about. There's this mentality, and I can say this because this was exactly what I believed for such a long time, that we're seeing all of this exposure. I mean, certainly we could see more, but we've seen a lot. I think we could agree that a lot of stuff has come out that we never would have probably been discussing or seen on the grand scale that we have, where there are not some benevolent military forces behind the scenes pushing that. Right. So we can all agree that there is a military operation going on, but I had the attitude like they're dripping all this stuff out. They're exposing it little by little in order to primarily, this is what I thought the main goal was, to mentally and emotionally prepare all of the sheep-like normies out there to be able to face the truth. Like that was the main mission. Now, I'm not suggesting that's not part of it. I'm not saying it's all one or the other. But the exposure was really meant for the preparation, so that people that society wouldn't crumble. And then at the appropriate time, when the white hats believed or could detect that enough people were awake and emotionally, mentally prepared, then they could get into the justice phase. I guess it's sort of an oversimplification, but that's what I used to believe. Like I said, I haven't abandoned that entirely. I think that's from the perspective of all of these normies out there who are going to be shattered by the realities that they're going to be faced with. There's a lot of truth to that. But as far as us, I believe that the exposure is prompting us, forcing us into taking action. That has to happen before we're going to see any justice. As a matter of fact, I think that's far more important. It's not just simply about protecting the millions and millions of adults out there and treating them like children because they can't face reality. I think, and that's the reason that we haven't seen any major arrests. We haven't seen any, justice on the scale that we're all demanding. But I think the far bigger factor here is that once we decide to rise above that fear, once we decide to put our differences aside and just operate at the level of principle and commitment and will, there is absolutely nothing that can stop the change that we want to happen. And President Trump said it himself. He said, when Americans are united, they're completely unstoppable. And I think it's not just in terms of in terms of foreign policy and going and fighting wars and all that. No, what he's telling us, what he's all reminding us, he's reminding all of us is that we, the people, have the power, right? But we have to reclaim it. It's not just going to be given to us. We actually have to go out there and we have to reclaim it. Exactly. It's, getting back to the fear thing, and I'll wrap it up with this. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who said, when the people fear the government, there's tyranny. When the government fears the people, there's liberty. And that's ultimately, I think, the mindset that we all, and a lot of us aren't going to get there right away, but the more they continue, the more that they push all these psychological operations, the worse the optics get, the higher gas prices go. I mean, you could go on and on and on. It's really going to force people out of their comfort zone. And at a certain point, I mean, even going back to the Revolutionary War, I mean, it's not as if they just wanted to immediately go to war. They tried multiple different avenues to settle their grievances, but ultimately, people have to. I mean, you go back throughout the annals of history, and you look at any major revolutionary event, it always took place because the people finally had been pushed and they had enough, and they came together collectively with a united purpose. And here in America, I mean, and I said this the other day in reference to what I was mentioning earlier about Albania, like just saying that look at what they're doing in Albania versus like what we're unwilling to do here when we've got 400 million civilian-owned firearms in circulation. I mean, we could take this country back overnight if the people were. We could do it this weekend if the people were united and on the same page. But that's the problem. They use divide and conquer tactics, and they're constantly, like Lewis said, they're constantly trying to keep us in a state of fear, because when you're afraid, you're paralyzed. You don't take action, and you just want to believe that somebody's going to come and save the day.
In that same message, Patriot, didn't you also say, because they're taking action over there and people are learning that babies are being eaten and people just turn the other way? Isn't that what you said? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And it just shows the great job they've done on brainwashing people and keeping everybody's point they've made. People are so worried about their next paycheck, worried about this, worried about that, fearful of this, fearful of that. And it's a perfect storm they've created for humanity, right? So that we don't come together and do precisely what we're talking about today. But there's enough of us now that are aware of this and understand, and this conversation is so important because action does have to happen. And as Lewis says, if it's just 1 in 1,000 people or whatever, it can happen with a small majority of us that are willing to stand up and take action at this crucial time in our history with divine protection as well.
Well,
and that small percentage was, I think, about 3%. Yeah, and that's really important to keep in mind.
Yeah.
But they've used all these psyops, and you guys touched on the racial one for sure. With regard to different groups of people having different rules applied to them, whether it's cultural or otherwise, I think that's really dangerous. I've hung out with a lot of military guys, and boy, do they give each other hell for their racial background and so on. But ultimately, there's this underlying brotherhood because everyone sees each other as an individual, and that's a big threat, to these powers that are trying to turn us into sheep that need governance. We started out with the goal of very small government, and it was started by a bunch of rugged individuals, and that was respected. And we need to see each other as individuals. That's a big step in the right direction, because until we do, we're sheep that do need governance and representative government. Well, who wants a sheep to do the leadership? It's not representative at all. So it's time to step up in that regard. And it is important to see each other as individuals. I think until you see them as individuals, they're not going to step up with that kind of strength. And we're at a time in history where that strength is absolutely essential if we're going to save this thing.
But one thing we're fighting against that people have never fought against in any of the prior revolutions in history is another thing that's been created. And Patriot brought it up just a short bit ago. Sense of entitlement, which precludes people from taking action, precludes people from doing what needs to be done. Because when you have that sense of entitlement, and I've railed about this for a long time, freedom comes with responsibilities.
That's right.
If you want to hold on to those freedoms, you have to act responsible in regard to what those freedoms are alleging, and you have to take actions to protect those freedoms, or you will lose those freedoms. And because people have a sense of entitlement, A, they believe that they are entitled to it. B, they believe, well, someone else will take care of it.
Yep.
I don't have to do anything. And C, it'll work itself out. No.
How's
It
that
doesn't.
working so far?
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
ain't working. No, Mark, you're spot on, man. You're absolutely spot on. That there is I think the primary problem that we have right now is overcoming that mindset, or let's just say rediscovering the mindset that this country was founded upon. I mean, the reality is if our founding fathers and the people who who established this country and fought for this country, previous generations, if they had the same attitude as is so prevalent today throughout our society, this country wouldn't even exist.
That's right.
Far from it. I mean, that's just the simple truth. Anything that's worth having, you have to be willing to fight for it. And there are lots of different ways of fighting. And like Lewis said, I mean, at the end of the day, let's not forget that we have the option, if we ever felt that it was necessary, to take that last step of taking up arms. None of us want that. And that's the thing. It's like, I mean, that's, Ellen, you brought up the post that I put out the other day, and people were writing back to me saying, oh my God, you've completely lost the plot. You've lost your mind. The whole point is to do this without kinetic fighting. And I'm like, as if I was advocating people going out into the streets and engaging in violence. That wasn't the point at all. But, people, they only see, and sometimes what they want to see, they see it through a certain lens and they twist the message around. The point, folks, is that, as Mark just eloquently laid out, if you're not willing to put aside that sense of entitlement and that, instant gratification type of mentality, and you're not willing to rise above your fear, and then you're not going to ever get anywhere in life. And these are principles that are even broader than the discussion that we're having. I mean, just think about your own personal lives for everybody out there. Anytime you face a real obstacle, a real challenge, you're not going to ever overcome it unless you find the will and the strength and the courage to take the necessary steps to fix that problem. And we're just talking about this on a much broader scale in terms of saving our country, but the principle still applies, no matter how you want to look at it. And so if we can sit here all day long and we can just say, well, the white hats are coming, and let's just wait for the next comm and the next psyop and rinse, repeat, and remain passive and remain docile, or we can say enough is enough. And it's time for people to start looking at this in a different way. And that's really just been my primary message to folks out there. Not from a soapbox. I'm not lecturing anybody. This is a reflection of what some introspection on my part, thinking about, I mean, I recently celebrated my 5-year anniversary of doing podcasts, and I saw the direction. I mean, I started, my anniversary was in March. And this was, for me, like when I started to see everything just completely go downhill with the Iran war and Trump attacking his base and the division within MAGA and all this type of stuff. And it just prompted me, along with some personal challenges as well, to take a good look at where we're at right now, and ask myself that honest question, like, is this ultimately working? Are we really moving the needle? I mean, sure, you could say in a lot of different ways that, like, you could point to things and cherry pick things and say, well, this is a good sign and that's a good development. But on the grand scale, let's be honest, we haven't accomplished anything close to what our ultimate goal is here. And it's been, we're in, Q started posting in 2017. Trump came along in 2016. We're like 10 years into the Trump era. And, more and more people every single day are getting disillusioned. They're exhausted. And they're angry, and so on and so forth. So I say, okay, well, what do we do about it? Do we just sit and talk about it? And do we yell at each other and call each other black pillars and panicans and allow that type of mentality to destroy this movement from the inside? Or do we actually confront where we're at and say, well, wait a second, maybe we've been getting this wrong to a degree, not wrong necessarily, but maybe we haven't been seeing the full picture of what our responsibility is as a nonce. And I've always said that at the end of the day, there's a reason that we were chosen. Even if we want to look at it from a spiritual plane, like that God awakened all of us, not just so that we could create an echo chamber and live inside that echo chamber and bounce these ideas off of each other, but that we could actually nurture help each other learn, help each other grow, but then at the appropriate time, find the will and the strength to be the leaders that are going to take this country back. That's what I truly believe. I think that as long as we sit back, like Lewis has said all along, and once again, I just have to commend him because like years ago when I first heard that message, I thought, oh yeah, well, okay, yeah, we're part of the plan. I just kind of like brushed it aside because I was so thoroughly invested in this idea of Patriots being in full control, nothing to worry about, sit back, enjoy the show. But I've gotten to a totally different place, and I'm grateful for that. I really am, because I think this is exactly what this whole process for me has been about, of going through this reflective period, so that hopefully I can convey that message to my audience and have it resonate with. And I would say that a vast majority of them are, because they're in the
From
same
the comments, it looks like they are.
Yeah,
Joe,
they're in the same place.
Just to go, because I agree with what Patriot just said 1,000,000,000%. If I want to visit something, can you put back up the last post that you put up?
Yeah, absolutely. That was
When people are willing to
die for their
freedom and not the dollar.
I'm going to find it. There it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Now maybe I look at things from a different lens than other people because of what I did for a living. But I, like most people, I can't watch the mainstream news anymore. Can't really watch mainstream media anymore because it's just that bad. So if I sit down and watch TV, it might be an old movie, it might be old TV shows, something you can laugh about, or a drama that was really good. And I've noticed a lot, and these are subtle messages that are put out there that I think really aren't so subtle, at least they're not so subtle to me, and that people should be looking at. Because I've noticed that a lot of the ads that are being put out there now are things that people should be looking at and saying, wait a minute, I thought we're getting away from this, because there are a million and one new apps out there for online gambling. Okay, people are struggling. They're on the balls of their asses, and they're putting on online gambling, promising all these riches to suck these people in and suck them dry for the last penny that they've got. Then you've got your Blue Chews and your other stuff. Everything that, and believe me, folks, I'm far from a prude, but every prurient interest that could possibly be thrown in front of us to take us back to what got us where we are. And people sit back and look, most people don't watch commercials, but they're there. Mm-hmm. And they are everything that we watch on TV gets ingrained in your mind. And when we start standing up, just like Fletcher says here, you have to find people willing to die for their freedom, not the dollar. This is how many people are in this movement because of the bloody RV, sitting waiting for the fortune to fall into their laps. And yet the RV, and I 1,000,000,000% believe that it's going to happen, because it needs to happen. The globe is bankrupt. It's financially bankrupt. So something has to happen to change it. However, most of the things that we've been told since the beginning of this movement, when we hear everything is a lie, this is a psyop. Most of what we've been told are lies. And for everybody who believes this is going to happen, that's going to happen, or this truther is telling you this is going to happen, this truth is telling you that's going to happen, bullshit. Mm-hmm. Bullshit. We know the destination. Sit back and enjoy the journey, and stop letting all this other stuff filter through your mind. Put your effort behind stuff that is going to help prolong the life of that destination, and stop putting it into stuff that just doesn't matter. And when you see them trying to backfeed us with these different prurient interests, fight back against it. Doesn't cost you a dime. Costs you a little bit of time.
Thank you, Mark.
You know,
Appreciate it.
it's interesting because we talk about black pillars, as Patriot mentioned. I think there's different type of black pillars. I think that there's black pillars that are intentionally there to take everybody off a track, and then I think there's people that are black pill because they're frustrated that things aren't moving the direction they thought it would move, and they're lashing out, or maybe just questioning something. God forbid we actually do that.
Right.
Right. That the second black pillars I admire. Those are the ones that I say that's where we should be. It should always be question, 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 question. I mean, the reality is I thought for sure that we used to say all the time that we are the media, yet we're expecting President Trump and the mainstream media to drop all the knowledge on us. I'm sorry. I thought we were the media. It's like we can't have it both ways. We really need to do this. But we are in a massive propaganda psyop from a long time ago. I call it the Rockefeller realm, right? Because think about the way the Rockefellers set everything up. The Rockefellers were known for being the most immersed in homeopathic cures, but yet everything they put out is a pharmaceutical drug that does the opposite.
Yes.
From
Petroleum based. Yep.
Petroleum-based,
from
yeah.
that. It's all petrol based, right? So, and the Rockefellers drove us into this 9 to 5 work atmosphere mentality against what? Because freedom is having your own business and producing your own wares, and then free trading that on the market. And then fast forward to modern days. What's most important, and you kind of hit on this, Mark, is what are we getting? If you get from commercials, I talked about this with my wife all the time. Lying in a commercial is supposed to be okay. Like they'll talk about a man and a woman, and the woman's cheating on the man because of something he said or whatever that is, and it's justified as okay, right? And there's people that are constantly justifying their behavior as it's okay, and it's become a mainstream okay. Well, that's all propaganda psyop. To give you the biggest example is what's most important to people? Their cars. Their most amazing, beautiful cars. That's a psyop, because what should be most important is, instead of the freedom to say or do what you want, you don't have the freedom, or they're trying to suppress your freedom to grow your own food, to have the healthiest possible food. Because you know what's much more important than that is driving your Toyota Camry. Right. And this is intentional. It's all been drawn up long time ago. And I said the baddies think in 100-year plans, and we the people can barely plan to the weekend. And until we change that mentality, we're going to be subjugated under the rule of the evildoers.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to piggyback on that, what you said about the black pillar label, if you will. And there are others as well. You know, you're panicking. Trump has put that out there. And in a lot of ways, I think it's kind of unfortunate, because that has really taken the because there's such a cult of personality around Trump that people are just going to listen and agree with whatever he says. And, you know, so he's putting that out there. And I think in a lot of ways, it introduces even more divisiveness inside of our community, because it really, it underscores this idea of like, oh, you're a panic and you're a black pillar because you don't simply take everything that you're being told by Trump and agreeing with every single thing that he says or does. We're going to slap that label on you. That really is just another, I mean, that's just it's so ignorant when you really stop and you think about it for a moment, to look at people that way. Now, I get what Lewis is saying. There are certainly dark hat operatives that are, you know, that they're specifically intending to cause chaos, to cause discord, et cetera, et cetera. But there is a huge difference between that and someone who is just asking legitimate, critical questions. Exactly. And as long as we should not be allowing that to take root inside of our community the way that it has, because all that does is it creates more division. And whenever there is more division, there's more fear. A lot of people are afraid to even say something. I mean, I have a chat room, and it happens all the time. You know, people And I allow free speech in my chat room. I don't censor anybody. People say what they're going to say, but people will come out and they'll ask a question, or they'll be critical of something that Trump says or does, or even if it's me, and all of a sudden you just get attacked by all of these different people. That that you're a coward, you don't trust the plan, you're a sunshine patriot, you're a this and that, and it's just like they throw these labels around instead of actually pulling back and saying, well, maybe you might have an interesting point there. Why don't we discuss this? Why don't we have a real conversation about it? It's absolutely astounding to me, because when you go back, I just use my own experience here, going back 5 years, and the environment within the truth community at that point, even after COVID, after January 6th, after the stolen election, there was much more of a sense of camaraderie and unity within this community, and people had much more open-mindedness. And as time has gone on, it's like, again, people are saying, well, you've got to choose a lane, and you've got to pick a side. It's like that same mentality that we're trying to break free from has taken root inside of our own community. And we have our own people who are doing that on a daily basis, and don't even realize that what they're actually the ones who are causing the division. They're actually the ones that are creating a problem, not the people that are asking questions and criticizing and saying, well, I don't like this decision. And then it always comes back to, well, you don't trust Trump, you don't agree with Trump. Well, guess what? I don't agree with everything Trump says and does. I may not understand it, and I'm not in the situation room. I'm not part of the less than 10, obviously, but I don't have to. I mean, you can support somebody without agreeing and being in lockstep with every single thing that they say and do. That is a very dangerous mentality to get into.
How
And
boring
there's
would that be?
What's that?
Yeah.
How boring would that be if
Well,
we
that
agreed
too.
upon everything?
But that too,
Right.
that's the entire spirit that we're trying to embrace, that is being snuffed out inside of our community. And I would also add to that, it's just another manifestation of the fear topic that we talked about. People being afraid to speak out, people being afraid to be themselves. And look, my whole message has always been that confidence, that courage inspires more courage, and it inspires confidence in other people. Like when you see people not afraid to be called a name, people who aren't afraid of, are paralyzed by the potential consequences of what could happen. Meanwhile, look at what's happening. Look at what's happening right now. These are the consequences that we should be worried about, not these unknowns. And it's like, this is part of the mentality that needs to break. I mean, you gotta get to a certain point. I mean, I have a pretty large following on Rumble. I have 86,000 people, right? And I'm prepared and I'm ready and willing to lose as many as necessary. It's not that I don't love you all and I don't care about your support, because I do. I've worked very hard to develop this community, and I don't want to see people leave. But at the end of the day, I'm going to stand on principle. I'm going to stand behind what I believe to be true. And there are going to be people who are going to come and go, and that's just fine. But that's just, I'm just using that as an example. Like, I could sit back and be afraid. Oh no, I'm going to lose followers. Oh no, I might not make as much money or revenue streams from my videos. I might have less views. I might have people call me names. Guess what? I've had all of those things happen to me. And the only thing it does is make you stronger.
Yeah, and you're a really amazing dude, and it still
you are
happens.
too. You are too. You guys are all amazing. But I just, I don't want to make this about me, and I apologize.
Right.
But it's yet another example of, if we're going to be leaders, we have to lead by example, right? Just like Lewis is.
And to reiterate, but I just want to reiterate your point, because in the bigger picture, the goal was to divide and conquer, and so the people were divided and separated. That's what's happening in the truth community, from what my notice, because I've interviewed a lot, and they all are in their silos now. They're all in their silos, and so the truth community is kind of divided as well at this point, and that's not going to work if we are going to actually make a difference, right?
Yeah. Although I think it's a powerful cleansing process that's going on now. Also,
Yeah.
And because I do believe there is a lot of controlled opposition. I've been saying
I'm
this.
gonna put this up while you speak, Lewis, because Amy, our friend, sent this to us. So
Okay, so okay, so I believe there's been a lot of controlled opposition for several years, and I've said for a long time is you're going to be shocked at who is evil is actually good, who is good who's actually evil. We don't know what we don't know. My biggest concern, and I know I've been harping on this for several years, is people that claim they're patriots have traded idolization of an entertainer to somebody in the patriot movement.
Boom.
And
Nailed
I
it.
think that is extraordinarily dangerous because you're literally just trading out your
Yeah.
idolization when it should all be questioning. I want people to question me all the time, hold my feet to the fire. I absolutely want to be the best I can be. And the way to do that is to hold my feet to the fire and ask me the toughest questions you possibly can.
Yep.
There is a whole sector of this movement that's just in it for the money. Some of you may have remembered years ago, I think this is right before I met Mark, actually. Years ago, I lost my shit because I noticed that many podcasters built their platforms on the back of child trafficking, but then abandoned the narrative completely, right? Because it wasn't continually to bring them resources. And then I went out there and called them all out, and then suddenly a whole bunch of them start talking about it again, right? Good on them for doing it, but bad on them that I had to prod them in order to get that to happen.
exactly.
So it's very important that we don't lose the plot. And the plot is we, the people, have to gather together to do the best we can to take back our republic because we have lost it. And the only way we're going to take that back is by working as hard as we can and be willing to be uncomfortable and have the uncomfortable conversations and not just be part of a tribe because it's part of a tribe.
Well said.
Amen.
So important, and I think a division among truthers, I think a lot of that is refinement, I mean, and Anna Kasparian comes to mind. I mean, this was one of the most annoyingly on the left loud voices. She was just infuriating for the whole first, 3/4 of this. And then all of a sudden she has a shift and it's a big one and her voice is amplified. But, look at the points she's making. It's pretty spectacular. I think that this refinement is really bringing the truth to the surface in a way that's digestible for anyone that's free thinking at all on either side. This isn't about sides anymore. Again, it's that unity piece, I think, and it's bumpy. It's a departure from what we're used to. We're seeing a lot of folks on what we thought was our side of things being exposed, and so yeah, I think that's as much a refinement as it is anything else, and I think it happens to be necessary. What do you guys think?
Well, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it than what people are looking at, and we go back to that the entitlement and the instant gratification part of the realm that we're dealing with. And when I said a couple of times already today that people, the truthers, the Telegram and Rumble people and X people, et cetera, have become the new mainstream media, but not in the good sense. They're not doing what they alleged they were going to do. They're doing exactly what the mainstream media was doing. And people, unfortunately, the audiences have not broken that mold. They are still doing what was done for decades. When I was a little kid and you used to sit in front of the TV with your parents and watch the nightly news, with whether it was, Cronkite or Huntley Brinkley or whosoever, you sat there and you watched it and you continued. It was a generational thing. You continued watching a particular channel because those are the people that you believed. And we have to stop blanketly believing what's out there. There are too many people who are putting out nothing more than their opinions. You have people out there who are attempting to reinterpret history and are putting out shows on an ongoing basis telling you, no, don't believe what the history books told you or what you've heard throughout the years. This is what the truth is, and research a little bit and get some information. And yet right there in what they're saying, when they refer to their editorial board, they're telling you that they're putting out their opinion. And that's really all that it is. But people have become so abhorrently lazy that they won't bother to do the research themselves and say, no, there's a little fly in this ointment here. Something doesn't quite register. Something's not right here.
Yep.
And that's how you learn. And that's how you learn to discern fact from fiction. And I always go back to it. And a lot of people love him. A lot of people hate him. And especially in the way that he delivers stuff. But Derek Johnson is really the only person out there who brings stuff to the table that you can say, here it is in black and white. It's, kind of undeniable. But the rest of them are putting out their opinions. And don't just sit there and accept what opinion resonates with you. Look into it. Do the work. We have to do the work.
Well
I
said.
I
Well,
agree.
real quick, I know, Lewis, I don't know how much longer we have you for, but I wanted you to be able to, if you need to segue and move on, or if you can hang out, but I wanted to bring that up because I know you and I talked a little bit before the end.
I'm jumping on another interview in about 10 minutes, so I'll probably leave in about 5. But lots of love to everybody here. I just individually, Joe, you're just phenomenal. You're such a talent and a wonderful person, and what a great listener. I'm watching you run your show. And Scott, you're a lot of fun, and just you're so in touch with the divine when we talk. And Ellen, you're frankly one of the best interviewers that I've seen. It's just fantastic. And Mark, the love I have for you and the courage that you've done what you've done, and you've taken a small channel, and unfortunately it should be massive because of what you do. And I think it's probably small because of what you do, to be honest with you.
Yep.
And Patriot, a lot of love for you, man. You're just so brilliant, and it's pay attention, and thank you for having the courage to step out against what the so-called narrative to put us all in the boxes, because I think it's very powerful to have a voice like yours moving forward.
Well, thank you for inspiring that, because like I've said, I can't give credit enough to the people like yourself, and you've really been at the forefront of this all along, like I mentioned earlier, of trying to get us out of this box, to try to get us outside of this echo chamber, and to realize that we the people, that's really been the whole theme of this show today, is that we have the power not only to take our republic back, that's the biggest thing, but we also have the power, because we are the battery. If you go back to the Matrix analogy, like, we are the energy. Whatever our consciousness and energy is directed toward, ultimately that will determine our reality. And if we continue to fuel this environment that we've so articulately laid out today, then that's what we're going to get more of that. Like, there's an old saying, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. You have to be willing to forget about what other people think. Forget about what other people are telling you. Forget about all the pressures and the perceived fears and wanting to be on the right team, and just get rid of all that. You're going to find the right people are going to find you, guaranteed. If you take a stand and you listen to your own intuition. Honestly, the people that I respect the most, and Lewis, right up at the top of that list, are the ones who are willing to stand on principle without fear, and to take action on that principle. And what happens is that it, like I've said multiple times, it inspires other people to do the same. That's what a leader does.
Yes.
If you stand on principle without fear and you're willing to take action, other people will follow. And that defines you as a leader. So once again, Lewis, I have so much respect for you, man. Thank you for the kind words. And it's been a great show. I don't know how much longer we have, but my goodness, it's been amazing.
Mhm.
I gotta echo everything that Patriot just said. I met Lewis 2 years ago at the Unity Tour in Tampa, and there were a lot of speakers there, a lot of people with a lot of opinions there. And I said to my former partner at the time, this guy's the real deal. This guy is just absolutely the real deal. And we've become good friends, and I really appreciate everything that he's doing. But I have to reiterate what I said at the beginning. the people of the state of California, if you want real change, you have to step up, just like we've been talking about all day here. You have to step up and do what's necessary. And if it takes just a real simple letter writing campaign to the FCC to get these people to give these independent candidates equal time, do it. It might be 5 minutes out of your life. Do it. It doesn't cost you anything except however much a postage stamp is nowadays. Lord knows they don't deliver on their promises. But this is the guy that you want as your governor. And I'm proud to call him a friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well said.
Look out for that day. Look out for that day, Lewis. Woo! I can't wait.
Well,
Ah,
with that or not, we're going to do a lot of wonderful things to unite this country, pulling the rope in the right direction. So I'm thrilled. I already have a lot of this in the head, a lot of it on paper, and I'm going to spend in the next few weeks to set up programs where we can actually all make a difference. Very simple, because I've learned, and here's where my failure was. And I'll leave you with this, because I believe in failing forward. So it's okay to fail. You just have to be willing to fail, right? So I had the Truth Tours, Truth Tour 1 and 2, and then we kept hearing from the people, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? So I decided to, in my arrogance, do Truth Tour boot camp, right? Which was amazing, because in my first 3 days on the tour of me trying to teach people what to do, I've quickly learned I don't know what the hell I was talking about, and retooled it. And the rest of that boot camp for the other 15, 20 events were me asking questions on what successes have you have, and what can we do to make a difference, and how can we assist. So that was a really beautiful awakening. And now I've had that attitude for several years, and we've gained so much knowledge by doing less talking and more listening, that we actually now can finally start delivering concrete game plans from all the way from a local establishment all the way up to governing a state on how we can do things. And it'd be very easy for anybody to attach themselves to this movement and say, okay, now I have a template. So, and I'd love for anybody, all of you, to evaluate what I'm putting out and say, hey, maybe you could do this better or add this to it. I'm totally open to that, because it's going to be game changer in my opinion.
Awesome. I'm on
awesome.
board, man.
All right. Well, God bless everybody. I do have to roll because I have another meeting. So appreciate you all. I feel blessed and proud just to be invited into this group. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Lewis.
Lewis.
Much love, brother.
Take care.
Wow. I mean, it just, Scott was talking about, hey, are we going to do any shows? And then Mark and I had this conversation a couple days ago. And then I thought, maybe Patriot Underground, he hadn't done a show in a while. And then Ellen and I talked, and I can't think of a better panel right now. The comments are just incredible. I haven't had to say much at all. This feels like a Derek Johnson interview for me.
I was thinking the same thing.
But I just want to hear. We can go around, but I want to start with Ellen. What is this for you? What is this either meant for you today, or is there anything you haven't said? You're so radiant, and like Lewis said, you're such an amazing interviewer. And I just want to shed light on Ellen for just a few minutes here. So please.
No, I enjoy these discussions so much, and I appreciate being a part of this, because, I feel really grateful that I can look at something and not get absorbed by it anymore, that I don't have to have this reaction. And so I love that we can have these discussions. I love being a part of this. I know this is biblical times we're living in. I know, there's divine things happening all around, but part of it is having these discussions, understanding who we are, understanding who other people are, knowing we have to put our time and action in focus, not our talking about it has to lead to something, has to lead to action. It's been the whole theme for the day, and I think it's not a coincidence that it's the anniversary of D-Day today. I mean, there talking about dying for freedom. I mean, we are in the middle of the greatest time to be alive, but we're also at the precipice because the most dangerous thing has happened to people, as we've talked about. People want the instant gratification we've talked about. They are they are complacent, and complacency is the most dangerous thing that there could possibly be. And when people are just scrolling TikTok and they are entitled and they're not willing to fight, like a parent knows how to fight for their child. That's the way that's the mindset we have to have for our country. And that's the goal. And I think that people who are listening, who are watching and having this discussion, if they could help get that mentality out and they can share it with other people, that's been fantastic. And I'm just really grateful to be a part of this with all of you.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Patriot, love to have you. I mean, it might be good to keep this around 2 hours, I thought, because people have lives. And it's what's been great about having Patriot here is, he's also airing this on his channel. I relate to a lot of what you've been saying lately, and you're stepping back a little bit. In fact, I'm going to be stepping back for a couple weeks. I'm traveling out of the country. I'm looking forward to that. But the feedback in your chat and the chat in general has been really beautiful to see, and people really value your way to not only look at things, but to step back from, maybe your perspective when you came in, and your vulnerability and willingness to say, hey, wait a second. And so if you could just, speak to the audience about maybe what you've been processing over the last couple of weeks, I think that'd be really valuable for people to hear.
Well, I appreciate that. And I've always looked at this as a journey. And that's the thing. When I came into it, I in my earliest episodes, I told people, I'm just a regular guy. I love my country. I see what's happening, and I want to be a voice. I want to be involved in whatever way that I can, but I don't have all the answers. So I kind of framed my podcast that way right from the very beginning. And then somewhere along the way, when you develop a large following, you start to notice that the way that the things that you say carry weight with people. And that's not something that I really ever anticipated in the beginning. I could say whatever I wanted. I still can, obviously. But people remind me of that all the time when I post something that confuses people or doesn't really seem to align with what I had been saying before. They'll question me and they'll say, well, it doesn't seem to, you seem to have changed, like that's what I'm getting a lot of now. Oh, your channel's getting darker and your outlook is getting very negative, and oh, your personal problems are causing you to lose sight of what really matters, and so on and so forth. And it's fine. People are going to say whatever they want, and that's totally cool. And it's not to suggest that a lot of those things that I haven't had personal issues and things contribute to what I've decided to do in terms of pivoting in this other direction. But it really has not been about any of that. At the end of the day, it's really been about recognizing all the things that I talked about today, and not being afraid. It's like I was talking about before as I was complimenting Lewis. I mean, we have to set examples. If I'm going to, it would be very easy for me to stay inside of my little bubble and just keep talking about the same things that I've been talking about for years now that have developed a wide audience.
Right.
And at a certain point, you start to get it in your head. This is the only thing that people want to hear, and so on and so forth. But I took that leap because it's an honest reflection of where I'm at. And I've told my audience that I am no good. I am of no use to this movement or to any of you if I'm not being authentic and real and telling you the truth as I see it, regardless of how that is going to be perceived by other people. I'm willing to take the slings and arrows as well. Okay. And I think that's what it is. We all have to stand on principle. And I believe, and as I've laid out today in so many ways, I won't do it again, but as I perceived this shift in the wrong direction inside of our community, moving farther and farther away from where we started, the principle, the unity that we had inside of this community, and becoming more and more tribalistic, more and more engaged in the groupthink, the cult of personality, it started to really hit me that I can't continue this. I can't continue to be a part of this. And that's why I decided to scale back and decided to focus on my own work to give me the freedom that I had when I began, before there were all these other conflicting factors that sort of led me in a certain direction. And it's not as if I didn't believe the things that I was saying for the past
Right.
few years, but eventually you get to a point where you have to recognize that you've hit your own personal crossroads. I actually put out an article on X pretty much laying it out a couple of weeks ago. And then you have to decide where you want to go with that and what you want to do with it. And if I'm going to continue to offer whatever I can to this movement, it has to be under those conditions where I'm being authentic with folks. And I think that most people who really resonate with me and my channel, that's the reason why, because that I'm not afraid to go there. I'm not afraid to have difficult conversations. And that's part of the reason why I jumped at the opportunity to be on this roundtable today with all of you, because I know you're all of the same mindset. You know, this is not, and I've said this about Joe and Scott right from the beginning. I mean, we go back even farther than Mark and I. That you guys, I have such incredible respect for the fact that you've always approached this as a journey. You've always kept an open mind, and that is so healthy, and it's so toxic to go in that other direction. And so, really, that's sort of a succinct answer to that. But just in reflecting on this conversation today, I mean, sooner or later, we talked a lot about fear. We've talked a lot about overcoming the obstacles to taking action. Sooner or later, all of us are going to be forced to find our courage.
Yeah.
All of us are going to be forced to find our courage. And it's up to us to decide how long that takes, right? It's almost like, it's like an alcoholic. They get to decide how low they go down in the elevator before they finally hit the stop button and they get off and they say, all right, enough is enough. We need to decide how much of this, really this clown show, this nonsense that they're constantly subjecting us to, are we going to put up with before we just say, you know what, I'm not going to fuel this anymore. I recognize that as one individual, I don't have the power unilaterally to stop anything, but at least I can be a voice and an example for other people. And to say that, we're losing the plot gradually. I mean, people are accusing me of losing the plot because I want to get outside of the echo chamber and I want to talk about more things than just the Q drops and the comps. I want to have larger discussions. And that's where I started, by the way. So I'm really just coming full circle.
Right.
This is nothing new. I just think it kind of surprised a lot of people who may have discovered my channel maybe in the past year, 2 years, 3 years, when I was in a different place. But I can assure everybody, and I'll just leave it with this. No matter what, I'm going to stay true to myself, and I'm going to tell you what I think and what I believe. And that's the most important thing to me. It always has been and always will be. And this country is worth fighting for. Our future, for our children, our grandchildren, for all that. I mean, it's like Lewis was saying. I mean, if I think he said if Trump came in on a white Pegasus and just saved the day,
Right.
we'd lose it all within a matter of years, because we would have actually earned nothing and understood nothing. And it really is incumbent upon us, we the people. So that's really been my primary message. And once again, I mean, just to echo some of the compliments here. I mean, Mark, you're just such a dear friend to me. Mark is one of the only people on the planet that I can call up and have a conversation and just let it all out. And I've done that plenty of times. Vented and said a whole bunch of things that I would probably never say publicly. And knowing that not only will he keep that confidence, but that he'll understand, and that he's always been in my corner. We're like soul brothers. And Ellen, I have to say, you really are an incredible interviewer. When I sat down with you, I did not know what to expect at all. Because again, I mean, I'm not anybody special. I'm just a dude with a podcast. I'm like, okay, this woman wants to interview me about my life. And I was like, boy, this is kind of uncomfortable. You made me feel so comfortable when we sat down together, and you got me to, I could almost feel like this energy coming over me. You have this incredible, positive, warm energy that gets people to just lower their defenses and to just talk about things in an honest way. So I just have so much respect for what you do. Joe and Scott, you guys, you're amazing. And of course, Lewis, like I said, I complimented him multiple times. There really aren't, like Mark said, there aren't too many people like him who are the real deal. Lewis Herms he's a leader, and he's somebody that you want to support and get behind. These are the type of people, I believe, as time goes on, there's going to be 100 Lewis Herms, and then 1,000, and then 10,000, and that's how we take our country back. We don't sit and wait for a savior. So I'll leave it at that. I love you all.
Amen. Amen.
Well said. Well said. God, there's this commercial I want to play about Smith and Barney. You earn it. I'll play it after Mark, though, because it's so good. Mark, talk to us. We literally did. It just kind of came to me that we needed to have this panel together, and it really has worked beautifully. This is the least work I've done on a show in a very long time. Well, I want to share with people the thumbnail of an interview that I did just a few days ago, just so people can be aware of this. This is Brittany. It's a mother's outcry for the children of America. I'm just going to read the top part here. Call to action. At 78 days old, my newborn son was breastfeeding in my arms one moment, and the next, armed men entered my room without a warrant presented to me and without my rights being read. My baby and I were forcibly separated. I was taken across state lines and held inside a men's maximum security jail for 93 days, while systems across jurisdictions continued the separation of me and my infant son during critical bonding and development. She's not seen her son in over a year, no crimes committed, no sentencing, no conviction. So Ellen just got off the phone with her, I believe, this morning. We're just trying to get this story out there. And I think part of it is, I know there's all these things happening with, the military and the white hats that we hear about, but there's still a mother who's not seen her child in a year. And this is where I'm sitting here like, well, if we have the med beds, as someone talked about earlier, we might still have Jordan Clark. If we had a full-scale military, coming in and helping mothers not be separated from their children, then Brittany might have her child back. So, as podcasters, we're seeing things from a different perspective sometimes, because we're being asked to break these stories. And thank you, Amy, one of our regular viewers, for sharing that story with me. Before we jump to Mark, Ellen, is there anything you want to say from your conversation with Brittany? Because the goal is, here's the real goal, and this is where I hope to see some kind of shift, is that Brittany gets her child back. Like, that would help there be a win, that someone from the Mormon church, there's many churches are infiltrated or what have you, has stolen her child, and trying to change the social security number and a few other things. So Ellen, give us a quick update on your interaction with Brittany, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's you hear these stories, and just like when we heard about the atrocities going on in our world, it's almost unfathomable, right? That's why most people don't believe that there's tunnels and abductions in a level that is unreal, the inhumanity of it all. And so for her situation, it's so grotesque in the corruption and of layers that she has had to deal with, ultimately losing her child to these folks. And they've designed the system. Those people who are corrupt within the system, they have it so designed that they have enough people, layers of people, in hopes that you will give up. You will just give up. And a lot of people have. Brittany is not. She has not. She has everything documented. She also has these documentations of who's doing what in the right places, so that if something were to happen to her, it would actually blow up even more, that this would get out there even more. So she's got all the information to other people. And she has faith, and with her determination, and I think we'll be sharing this story more because she's not the only one. It happens all the time. She just happens to have a determination and got linked to Joe through Amy to be able to get it out there. But she is a reflection of a lot of things happening that we don't really understand is happening. So this is part of what has to come to light um, for people to understand. And it has to be broken, this whole corrupt system. But it's going to take, again, full circle, people like us to do something about it, to expose it, to take action, and that's what we're trying to do for her and for people like her.
Thank you, Ellen. Appreciate that. And I'm glad you got a chance to speak with her. And I'm sure there might be some interviews upcoming. I think it would be wonderful to do a roundtable with most of the people on this panel and have Brittany and get her story out there. Right now, she's not showing her face on the interviews, but that is her and her child on that image. So we'll see how that unfolds. Mark, to you, what has this been for you to kind of step back in and voice what you voiced today? And it's always an honor and a treasure to have you on our show.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's always great being with you guys. This is only the second time that I've been in studio with Ellen, other than the time that she interviewed me, which was great. When you get the opportunity to be on the other side of the interview, it's always a lot of fun, and there's a lot of stuff that you get to talk about. But with the three of you guys and Lewis, it's this is an ongoing love affair over here. It's always a great conversation. It's always what I love about this combination is, out of the six of us who are on the panel today, three of us happen to be pretty irreverent. And when you get into topics that are so frustrating to people and so heavy on people, you need that break of humor. And that's one thing that's, anytime the three of us have had a discussion, a lot of times the train has left the station, and we've gone off the reservation on a bunch of different things. But that little bit of levity makes a difference. Because I've said for decades already, one of the biggest problems, not just in this country, but in the world, is people have forgotten how to laugh. And more than anything else, they've forgotten how to laugh at themselves. And that little bit of irreverence really, really, really makes a difference when things are getting a little too tense and you're starting to get a little too heavy. Where the hell did that come from? And it takes people back a little bit, and it's a good thing. So I've always enjoyed our conversations. I mean, I stepped away from doing the show, and first I stepped away from doing stuff with Dave, and then I stepped away from doing my show because, let's face it, I'm the old part of the group, and I'm tired. I'm tired, and it's my turn. I haven't given up working with the kids. I still do a lot of stuff locally, dealing with child abduction and child trafficking issues and raising awareness of it, becoming a Shared Hope ambassador, doing a bunch of things that I've promoted. And now I have the time and the opportunity at my leisure to do other things and help people. So thank you. I try to. But facts being what they are, these are the things that are important in my life, and I'm getting an opportunity to do it. But yet I can also be dragged back in kicking and screaming, do this crap again. So it's, it's a good thing. It's these discussions are very, very important for people to have and for people to learn. And I know a lot of people hear me say the same thing over and over again. You've got to learn to discern. You've got to go and take action. And I'm not preaching to you. I'm not ordering you to do anything. But if we're going to make this thing work, we've got to get off our butts and do whatever little bit you can. But more than anything, and I'll repeat what I said just about 10, 15 minutes ago, you've got to learn to, just like listening to the mainstream media and learning what you don't think is real or what you want to believe, what you don't want to believe. It's the same thing with alternative media. You've got to sit and learn and listen and say, you know something, I hear what he's saying, but, and the line of everything we were ever told was a lie. Why should I believe you? Just saying. So you've got to be your own person. You've got to be, just like as you get to be my age and, you know, things medically happen and you've got to go to doctors who don't give a rat's ass anymore. You've got to learn to be your own best advocate. Same thing here. You've got to learn to be your own best advocate and do what's right, not just for yourself, for your community, for your country, for your world, so that we do have a fighting chance to see this continue. So, you know, like I said, being with Ellen, again, it's always great because she does do a great job and she brings a lot of insight to the things we're talking about. You two knuckleheads, you know, it's just, you know, it's always great. It's always great, you know, and Joe, you and I always going back and forth about a bunch of different things, but also about music. That's something else I've had a lot of time to start to get back into.
Good.
And Patriot, you know, it was something that was fated to be. Absolutely not a doubt in my mind, with everybody that I've met and I've dealt with, that God's hand is in on this. But with Patriot, it was an absolute, you know, we were searching for each other. We found each other. And, you know, even with the great age difference, brothers from another mother. No doubt about it. And it's a very warm and cuddly feeling, no matter what the hell we're discussing, to be able to have these discussions with everybody. And Lewis, you know, like I said, you California people, you know, yank those avocado-sized heads out of your butts and vote. He's your only chance forward. It certainly isn't that bald-headed Brit. So that Baker from the news media. So that's my editorial opinion.
Well said. Well, Patriot had a it looks like there's a post you were ready to bring up. Should we share that, or is that now?
Oh, you can bring it up real quick. The only reason I found it is because I totally butchered it when I was trying to quote the.
Well, let's do it. Here we go. Read it.
Yeah, really quickly. This was the post I was referencing earlier, and of course, there's been. I don't, you know, we're winding the show down right now, so we're not going to get into anything about Massey. Although I will say that I do believe he's a man who votes on principle, and I respect that. And I'll leave it at that. But this was what I was referring to when we were talking about, you know, what it is that we're trying to save, what it is that we're trying to reconstitute. This pretty much spells it out. If legislators, he wrote, if legislators always vote with the president, we have a king. If legislators always vote with the prevailing wind, we have mob rule, aka democracy in its purest form. But if legislators always vote with the Constitution, we have a republic. know, and so I just brought that up earlier because I sometimes I have a habit of butchering things, and then I go, I feel like this obligation to make sure I get it right for the audience. I was going to just let it go, but it's very well aligned with the message that Lewis primarily was spearheading in terms of how we reconstitute this republic. We have to know what it is that we're fighting for. We have to understand what it is that we're trying to reconstitute in order to know what the correct roadmap to get there actually is. So I think this is really, it's just really important for folks, because a majority of Americans out there don't even really understand our form of government. And they don't even understand how it's been eroded. And if you don't understand the problem, then good luck trying to find the solution. So I just thought that this was important to highlight in the context our discussion. So that was pretty much it. But
No, thank you for that. I am going to play this ridiculous ad from back in the day because Scott and I joke about it, and then I'm also going to do an update on some of the folks attending the event that we're setting up with Donna and Elisa and Stu from Patriots Across the Pond. That's going to be in Sedona. We're figuring out exactly where, October 16th through the 18th. But with that, a little, like Mark was saying, a little humor. Here is an ad from Smith and Barney back in the day. I just got to play this. Okay, here we go. Of course.
John Houseman for the investment firm of Smith Barney.
Good investments don't walk up, bite you on the bottom, and say, we're here. Finding them takes good old-fashioned hard work, research, the kind they do at Smith Barney. Smith Barney is among a handful of top investment firms singled out for their work in research. Smith Barney, they make money the old-fashioned way. They earn it.
I mean, and we don't suggest going through Smith and Barney. What we do suggest is going through Matt Geiger. And you'll see Scott on this commercial that I'm about to play. And Verity Metals is also sponsors of both Patriot Underground Show and News Treason and Truth Stream. But I just want to let people know about this event. And Scott may be surprised by some of the folks that are on here now. So this is happening in Sedona in October. It's myself and Scott, Laura Eisenhower, Dr. Lee Merritt, Laura Worley, Lisa Schermerhorn, Jason Q and Dina, Ricardo Bossi via Zoom, 107 preliminarily confirmed, Sebastian Martin, the same, Dylan Lewis Monroe, which we finally get to meet in person, Tom Althouse, Scott McKay, Brian Monkey, Chuck Looney, also known as the XRP Shaman, Sasha Stone, and this is what I'm waiting to tell Scott, Dr. Scott Young.
Oh, I knew. I just had dinner with Dr. Scott Young in Vegas.
That's so cool. I didn't know he was coming.
No, well, I insisted.
Wow.
Absolutely. And Ellen, I'm sure Ellen's going to be there. And of course, you two guys are invited. We would love it. You know, there's no pressure yet, but we're
there's
getting
pressure.
the word out. We're very excited about it. So
it's going to be an amazing event.
Anything you guys want to say? Anything you guys want to say in closing? We'll play the lovely ad that both Scott and Matt Geiger in at the end as we do a farewell, because and you know, a lot of time. I mean, I guess I took the mid-commercial break or mid-show break to actually showcase this event with Lewis Herms, June 15th through 17th at the Ahern, I think that's how you say it, hotel in Las Vegas. And you guys can dig into that. That's an X post, and we'll also put that in our Telegram as well. But you know, we wouldn't be able to do this show like we are and these events without Matt Geiger from Verity Metals, who's not only an incredibly trusted man in the business, but now a dear friend. In fact, Scott's coming at you live from Matt's backyard right now. But
and we'll be at the summit.
Let's round. What's that?
Matt and I will both be at that summit in Vegas, and we're also going to be at the event in Tennessee as well. So I look forward to seeing everybody there. And thank you, Joe, for putting this panel together. These are some of my favorite people on the planet. Patriot mentioned courage, and courage is really bolstered, with friends and colleagues like this. And Ellen mentioned D-Day. My uncle died on the beaches of Normandy. Prior to that, I had family in the Revolutionary War. So for me, this fight was pretty clear from the beginning. And I know we're in the blender right now and we're being shaken up about a lot of things, but from my perspective, again, it's refinement, and I think we're heading for great things. We just all have to have skin in the game and fight to the finish. But I think there's an end in sight.
Amen.
Well said. And I want to thank C3PO for taking over for the first 30 seconds of that statement. I don't know what, I mean, you went in and out. So I apologize if maybe that was just my
geez, I don't know what happened.
Signal. Did you guys hear him clearly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did? Okay. That was
Yeah,
just me. So never mind. Okay, perfect. I'm glad that you guys, that the audience got to hear him. Scott can update me anytime. Ellen, please, in closing, anything you want to say and where people can find you.
Yeah, this has been so wonderful. You all are just wonderful patriots and warriors, and I'm just so grateful what I do just to get to know folks like you. I mean, this has been just such a wonderful thing. I thank God every night I get to meet folks like you and become friends with you all. I have a channel on Rumble called Truth Teller Tales, and I started it because I knew that this time in our planet with which we are living will be studied for generations, because there are certain people like you all here that could actually see the truth, understand what is happening, and wanted to get the word out and take action. And so I thought it would be important to record your life stories. And so that's what I've done on my channel. So you'll see a lot of wonderful patriots there and hear their stories. All of the men here I've interviewed, and it's been such an honor. And then just on the side, I do a couple other live shows now because I I hated The View on ABC. I still do, and I think they're so divisive. So I started a live show called The View of Truth, where we talk about inspiring, truthful things, and to get people inspired for the weekend to do good in their communities or whatever they're going to do, just to get them on the right track. So that's on Fridays at 1. And then I have my Labor of Love series that's tonight, actually. And we're talking to a gentleman, like we were talking about parallel things that are good in the world. He has this man named Hal Cranmer. He has assisted living homes in Arizona, and he's actually having seniors live. He's taking them out in the sun. He's giving them activities, healthy food, vibrant, and he's reversing Alzheimer's in some of the people that live there. The seniors are living and thriving, and this is the future of how our seniors and our elderly should be held in such adoration and respect, and not being thrown in the corner, and medicated. So that's tonight at 6 o'clock on Eastern time. And yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I'm just so honored and grateful to be here today. All of you fellas are just making such a difference and are just incredible warriors. And I'm just grateful to know y'all. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellen. Ben, I'm Patriot. Patrick.
He always calls me that, man.
Steve. Anyway, Marshall, go ahead.
I'm known by many names. Like I said, most of my audience still refers to me as Patrick.
Let's go with Patrick.
Jim Willie used to call me Patrick. I haven't sat down with the crazy doctor in a long time, but I still have a lot of love for him. It's like I said, I've said a lot. I don't want to drone on here, but just to reiterate, I think this was such a powerful conversation today. And knowing that when I sit down with all of these great minds, that it's inevitable. Somebody put up a comment a moment ago saying, great people make great podcasts. Well, I think that pretty much, I'm not going to necessarily include myself in that, but I certainly can say the rest of you you're great people. And there's so much mutual respect. There's so much warmth. There's so much love between all of us that we get into these discussions. And I think it's for the truth seeking community out there. It's so refreshing to hear people get outside of the formats that you see on so many different channels. And again, not to suggest that any of them, Q didn't have to tell us this, even though he did. No patriot is above another. We're all on an equal tier, and everything that people offer this movement doesn't mean you have to agree with all of it, but all of it has its place. And even the things that you don't agree with, it's been said many times, that all that serves to do, and Mark kind of touched upon this earlier, is sharpen your discernment. And ultimately, the most important message I'll leave folks with here today is, like Shakespeare said, to thine own self be true. Follow your own intuition, follow your own gut, and let the journey take you wherever it's going to take you. Be like Scott and Joe. When people try to tell you to choose a lane or pick a side or this or that, recognize, and I think we broke that down in some good detail today. Recognize what they're really asking you to do. They're asking you to become part of the group think, part of the hive mind. And that is the absolute worst thing that we could possibly do. I mean, we are the tip of the spear in terms of, the portion of the population that is awake and aware, for the same reason that inspired Ellen to start her channel, recognizing that fact. And we can never lose sight of these different influences, whether they be well-intentioned or not, that are really that serve to kind of to blunt the sword, if you will, of truth. We have to be willing to go in any direction that the journey takes us. And like I said before, to stand on principle, to not worry about what other people are going to think, because the individuals who have changed this world, you go back historically, they were the ones who dared to be misunderstood. They were the ones who dared to be demonized. They were the ones who didn't care about what other people thought. They were the leaders. And that's what we need to be. So there's a lot, there's just so many great people in this community. I salute all of you. But there's a very small fraternity of people that were on this panel today that are, as far as I'm concerned, very near and dear to my heart, the people that I respect the most and that have influenced my journey the most. So you guys are amazing. And I'll just close with this. I had a couple of subscriptions that were gifted. We actually had Dave pop into the chat for a moment there. So Dave gifted 5 subscriptions to my channel. So thank you, Dave. Great to see you, buddy. And then we also had White Knight 126, who gifted 10 subscriptions to Patriot Underground. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to all of you and for everybody out there in the audience. I mean, we say all the time that we could sit here and have a great conversation offline, and I'd be all for it. But it gets elevated. The energy of the audience, the energy of the comments, all the hundreds of, or if not thousands of people out there who are watching live or are going to watch the replay. I mean, ultimately, this is why we do what we do, to get this message out and to share it with all of you, and to have that serve as a uniting influence. And I think that's really what we have to do, is like put this idea of the groupthink behind. Forget about the echo chambers. The way that we get to unity. I mean, Mark's whole show, respect. I know that was what it was all about. That we have to learn to respect each other. We have to not be so quick to do what the enemy trained us to do, which is to jump down each other's throats and point fingers at each other and approach each other with suspicion and distrust. As opposed to that, we should first and foremost be leading with love and understanding, and that's ultimately what we need to change this world. So. Thanks again, everybody. This has been amazing, and I hope we get to do it again soon.
Well said.
Amen.
And go ahead. And to you, Mr. Mark, what a treat to have you guys all together. You all said yes, and it was kind of last minute, but I think the audience is resonating with the show. So please.
Well, right now, I mean, it's Saturday, and I'm about 3:30 in the afternoon, so I got to get back to the home for my sponge bath with Scott. No, it's like I said before, it's a lot of fun, but also a necessary thing to sit down with like-minded people who are on the same page, who get it, and who are trying to do the right thing for the people out there. We're talking before about what anybody who has known me for years knows. Never been exactly the type of person who gives a rat's ass what anybody thinks about me. As long as they understand and accept the fact that no matter how it comes out, I'm giving you what I feel to be the God's honest truth. And that to me is the epitome of being real. You say what you have to say, try to say it nicely. Sometimes I even do that, but for the most part, you got to go and put the truth out there. And as I've discussed for the 2 years that I was on the air, learn to agree to disagree. Have the discussion. Don't get into a fight over it. Don't cause an argument over it. Agree to disagree. Be the adults that we're supposed to be. Show the respect that the title of my show brought.
Mm.
And by the way, the show is still on the air. I'm not doing it anymore. I passed the torch to Stu and Elisa
Elisa.
from Patriots Across the Pond.
Yeah.
I felt that they really handled things much in the same way that I did. One of the things that I always greatly appreciated, and as a journalist myself, I used to call people like Bill O'Reilly and Hannity and especially Tucker what we call the bully pulpit. You know, you would ask a question, or they would ask a question, and the person would go to attempt to respond, and they'd immediately interrupt them because they weren't saying what they wanted said. That's not what interviewing is about. Interviewing, even just general manners. Your parents taught you right. And as Judge Judy used to say, you're given 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you listen twice as much as you speak. And people have to learn, if you're going to ask somebody a question, be respectful enough to shut your mouth and listen to the response. You can always rebut when they finish speaking, but don't interrupt. That's respect. That's also a plug for the show. So, which is now Mondays at 10:30 a.m. And then I rebroadcast on Fake News 7 NY on Rumble and on X, and also on YouTube and Facebook at 8:00 p.m. as I had been airing it for the past month and change. So it's still on. I hope everybody tunes in to watch that, because they're still doing a lot with child trafficking and other topics. So there's a lot out there, and people. One of the things that upset me a lot, but I do have that understanding, is $5 is a lot of money to a number of people nowadays. But for people who can run and go to a lot of these events for $350, for $500, for $700, you could afford $5 to give to the kids.
Well said.
So reach into your hearts and do what you can. At the end of every respect, just like I was doing for the last couple of months before I retired, I play the song at the end, and then it gives you all the information to the 4 organizations. I don't call them charities, but the 4 organizations that I believe in, as far as donating 100% of those funds to the cause, as opposed to throwing in 50 million different administrative fees, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can find it in your hearts as well as in your wallets, give the $5. And if you do and you want a copy of the song, email me. That information's there too. Tell me that you donated. Boom, I'll send you a copy of the song. I've done it to a whole bunch of people already. So,
And the name of the song, just so folks know.
It's called Who Saves the Children?
There we go.
And that's what it's all about. That's really what it's all about. We have to, the 2 most important things that we need to save are these kids who can't fend for themselves, and the veterans who every day allow us to do these types of things.
Mm.
So change your heart, people. Change your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Always a great, again, like I said before, always a great time being with all y'all.
Yeah.
There's a great comment there from the audience member that I just highlighted, who gifted 10 subscriptions. White Knight 126. Famous quote, but I love it, and I think it's really it's
Is
a
that
fitting
the one?
Oh,
Yep.
love
Yep.
it.
You can't change the direction of the wind, but you can adjust your sails. And in essence, I
Yes.
think that's something we should all take to heart and really contemplate, think about.
Very
That's
wise.
it right there. Yes.
Well
Well
said.
said.
Yep.
Just two announcements. One is this: if you go to lisamindset.com, I interviewed Lisa Schermerhorn. She's releasing her book, We Are Quantum, and it's only $8.88. And there's like 170 people signed up, and you can go this Lisa Mindset, actually, and I'll put this up, is the website, but she has 36 authors, and her event is on June 16th. And not only do you get the book for $8.88, I think then it goes up to $14.44, but you get a $40, it's like $40 a month for her and Honey to do these quantum healings. You get a healing thrown in as well. So she's made it really an unbelievable deal.
Wow.
And so I just want to put this up. If I think I have her website right here. Yeah, there it is. So it's
She's wonderful.
Yeah, she really is. lisamindset.com if you're interested in more about that. And then one more time, the interview that I did with Brittany, you can just look at this on TruthStream. And it's only like a 48-minute conversation. It's pretty much my emotional, most challenging interview that I've ever done due to the subject matter. So just want to let you guys know about those as far as reminders. And now we're going to close with the sponsor ad from our sponsor for at least News Treason and Patriot Underground and TruthStream. And Ellen, if you want to talk to Matt, let us know. But here is Scott and Matt in the ad for Verity Metals, and we will say farewell to everybody. Hey, we kept this under 3 hours, so hopefully this.
Hey, Joe, well done
Yeah.
putting this together and quarterbacking, man. That's the other thing is like, I mean, people oftentimes lose sight of that, but you joked about it and said you didn't really have to do much. Well, the reality is you're the one who you and Scott really both quarterbacked the interview so well. So I just want to give you credit for that and props where they're deserved, man, because discussions like this don't just happen on their own. I mean, it takes somebody to really to take point. And, like Mark was saying just a moment ago, to be a great interviewer. And sometimes I fail at this. I got to be honest with you, because I have a difficult time keeping my mouth shut. But to be a great interviewer, you really have to let people talk. And you guys do that so well. So I just wanted to say kudos to both of you guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
It's an honor.
Thank you, Joe. For all you, Joe, you've helped me so much. Thank you for everything.
Amazing work, brother.
Another great day.
It's an absolute honor. It's an honor. So with that, tomorrow there'll be, I believe it's 1 p.m. Pacific is the Roundtable with Lisa Schermerhorn and Michael Jaco and a bunch of the folks that are going to be part of the book, and we'll be airing that on our channel. But with that, we'll say farewell with a little Verity Metals and then our outro, and take care and God bless everybody.
God bless everyone.
God bless you, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Your financial advisor isn't going to tell you this. Your bank won't mention it. And your 401k custodian, they're hoping you never find out. You can convert your retirement account into physical gold and silver, real metal in your hands, or stored exactly where you decide. It's called a gold IRA rollover, and it's 100% legal, 100% IRS approved. And your financial, quote, experts, they don't get a commission when you take control like this. Wall Street wants your money in their system, in their accounts, where they control it. But physical gold, that's yours. Can't be hacked, can't be deleted, can't vanish when the market crashes. Verity Metals, we're the experts they don't want you to call. Convert your IRA or 401k into gold and silver that you can actually hold. Call 480-717-9081 or visit veritymetals.com, because your retirement should be in your hands, not theirs.
The old man turned to scratch his chin. He said, son, I wouldn't know where to begin. But your daddy's gone down south. Was all he would talk about. sun